Selena, since you're so busy with work and don't seem to manage the house chores or the kids properly, I've prepared dinner for everyone. Oh, don't worry about it. After all, I'm staying here, so let me at least cook as a way to say thanks. My mother-in-law, Lori, threw in her usual backhanded comment. It's hard to genuinely feel grateful when someone speaks to you like that. Lori's homemade spaghetti with meat sauce was packed with meat and looked incredibly rich. I tried to say, "Looks delicious," but froze in my tracks. Wait, I thought as I rubbed my eyes with the back of my hand. Wait, is something moving? It wasn't the steam, it looked like the meat sauce itself was shifting around. Feeling a surge of fear, I quickly swapped my plate with Lori's. And of course, it was Lori who let out the scream moments later. In an instant, a piercing shriek echoed throughout the room. My name is Selena. I'm a housewife in my late 40s. I have 2 kids, a 15-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son. While they aren't as demanding as they were when they were little, my days as a mom are still a whirlwind. Mom, I'm heading out. Can you pick me up later? Just as I got back from work, my daughter Michelle quickly left the house. Mom, I'm hungry. Joseph, my son, rubbed his stomach, having already finished off the big donut I left as a snack. It's routine whenever I get home from work. The kids flock around, calling out Mom, Mom. Part of me wants to say, Mom's tired too, you know, but it doesn't bother me much. Around 8 p.m., my husband, Charlie, gets home. Dad, can you stop looking at your smartphone while eating dinner? Joseph, who was playing a game nearby, couldn't help but scold him. Charlie always looks at his smartphone while eating, and he's constantly dropping food. Hey, you spilled some hamburger sauce on the floor. Can't you see it? Huh? Oh, I'll clean it up later. Joseph is just a grade schooler, but Charlie brushes off his scolding. I thought peaceful days like this would continue forever, at least until that night at 10 p.m. on a weekday. The doorbell rang loudly, and I thought, a delivery this late? As I checked the window, to my surprise, there stood Lori. I quickly opened the door and led Lori into the living room. I hurriedly threw the laundry that was on the sofa into the next room. Lori, what brings you here so late at night? Do I need a reason to come to my son's house? Right from the start, she was cold and combative. I could tell she was in a bad mood. Her sharp eyes turned toward the living room table. Oh, sorry about the mess. Joseph was doing his homework and fell asleep without putting his things away. Pencils, erasers, notebooks piled up, and an empty mug. Most noticeably, bits of eraser shavings were scattered everywhere. Feeling Lori's gaze, I smiled and hurriedly cleaned up. This place is always a mess whenever I visit. Once the living room table was clear, her eyes moved to the dining table and kitchen counter. Oh, sorry. It's from the dinner Charlie just had. I was about to smile and clean up when Lori suddenly raised her voice. What? Are you saying this is Charlie's fault? Her sudden outburst almost made me drop the dish in my hand. When your husband done eating, the wife should clean up right away, shouldn't you? Why are you making it sound like it's his fault? You're such an inconsiderate wife. I'm sorry. Lori, for all her refined manners, has a strong personality. Whenever we meet, I'm always wounded by her constant jabs and cutting remarks. Still, maybe Lori's comments are just normal for a mother-in-law. Whenever I visit my in-laws, I make sure to help with cleaning and tidying. And since takeout is often the meal of choice, I thought she was letting me take it easy. Back when my kids were younger, it was hard to move around. At times like that, Lori would become oddly kind. Selena, you and the kids are important guests. Please, sit down. Would you like me to make you some coffee? If I brought wine as a gift, she'd say, "Thank you. It's my husband's favorite." I don't like alcohol myself, though, in a sulky tone. Thinking that was a bad gift choice, I'd bring her favorite cake instead. But she'd always have one more comment. Bringing perishables to someone's house isn't very proper, is it? You didn't know that? Well, I'm not that fussy about those things, so I'll accept it. Thanks, Selena. I appreciate it. I'm not really hungry, but I'll eat it quickly since it's perishable. None of this was enough to cause a major problem. Lori always has a smile on her face. So her husband Ian and Charlie, who tend to be a bit clueless, probably don't even notice Lori's snide remarks. Besides, the more direct comments only happen when they aren't around. It's just your typical mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflict. Every family probably has something like this. But still, even small jabs can pile up and become a heavy burden. In other words, I find it hard to deal with Lori. So why did she come over so late at night? She brought a rather large bag. Maybe she came to drop off some food that was close to its expiration date. Either way, I just wished she'd finish her business and leave quickly. Huh, Mom, you're here. Just then, Charlie came out from the shower, tilting his head in confusion. He stood there in his underwear, water dripping from his head. Oh, is the shower free? I'm going to take one too. Selena, would you be a dear and get me a bath towel? Are you planning to take a shower here? I was startled, completely taken aback. Lori raised an eyebrow at my rude reaction, but only for a moment. "Oh, sorry to bother you when you're so tired," she said, with that calm, outwardly polite smile. So, are you planning to stay overnight?" I asked cautiously, my voice barely a whisper. Lori's smile widened. "Oh dear, did I forget to mention it earlier? My apologies. Yes, I'll be staying for a little while." I felt the blood drain from my face. A little while might mean 2 or 3 days, right? Or maybe a week? Or 10 days? I was too terrified to ask for clarification, so I just bit my lip and fell silent. The next day, I found out why Lori had barged in on us. "That's why, until Ian learns his lesson, I'm not going back," she said. Apparently, there had been a fight between Lori and Ian. From what I gathered, Ian's casual, "Could you help wash the dishes?" had sparked the whole thing. So basically, he thinks I've got nothing better to do. How insulting. He never bothered with house chores before, so why should I have to start now? The dishes were only the trigger clearly. Lori had pent-up frustrations with Ian. He can't even wash a dish properly. And his laundry skills, don't even get me started. The man's well past 70 and still completely useless. It's amazing he ever managed to hold down a job. Ian had retired after working for years, even past the usual age, as a part-time employee. At 70, he finally stepped down. I had assumed he was living a quiet, peaceful life with Lori now, but apparently, Lori expected Ian to take on household chores now that he was retired. To expect Ian to suddenly perform chores at the level Lori had mastered over decades seemed cruel. Now, let's be honest, there was no way Lori, as picky as she was, would just quietly stay at our house. The day after she came, Lori started giving me some helpful advice. "Selena, don't tell me you're serving cereal for breakfast. That's no good at all. Mornings should start with bread. Bread and soup wake up the brain and fill you with energy. Think about your family's health." Even so, there was no way I was making soup in the morning. Charlie and the kids barely had time as it was, so they preferred quick-to-eat cereal. "Wait a minute, Selena, are you really going to leave the house without cleaning first?" Just as I was leaving for work, Lori called out to me with a look of utter horror. "Housework should be finished in the morning. Don't use work as an excuse. Honestly, just spending one night in this messy house makes me feel unwell. Come on, don't make your guest uncomfortable. Clean up before you go. I had to bite back a scream. Impossible. If I listened to her, I'd be late for work. I'll clean up when I get back. I tried to say. What? Are you talking back to me? Oh my, how terrifying. Such a strong-willed daughter-in-law. I had no time to deal with her. I hurriedly apologized and rushed out the door to work. There was a good chance Lori would clean up the house on her own. I dreaded the thought of her going through my drawers or closets. That night, I came home early only to find the house as messy as it was when I left. Despite being at her son's house, she hadn't touched a thing. I was just starting to feel relieved when she pounced. Selena, come over here. Look, there's dust in the corner of the room, and hair, lots of it. Can you see it? And under the sofa, there's a balled-up sock. This is Charlie's, right? I bet he's been searching for the other one. Her critiques didn't stop there. Next, she dragged me into the kitchen. Charlie's breakfast dishes are still sitting out. Look, you can see the coffee stains in the cup, and this plate smeared with jam. Just left like that, don't you think it'll attract bugs? How was I supposed to clean the dishes Charlie used after I'd already left for work? Then she opened the freezer and let out a sigh. You have a lot of frozen food in here. Do you not care about your family at all? I do care, but I just don't have time. I tried to tell her that it's not like we eat frozen food every day, but Lori didn't want to hear it. To top it all off, she opened the trash can. Look at all these frozen meal wrappers and candy wrappers. Poor Charlie and the kids. I never should have come home early. The kids were at their extracurricular activities, and Charlie was at work with just me and Lori. She didn't hold back. Now, let's start with cleaning. I really can't stand a dusty house. Oh, sorry, but Joseph will be home soon, so I need to make dinner before. I started to say, but her angry aura made me fall silent. The image of refined grandma cracked, revealing a challenging glare. What's that? So what? You're going to eat in the toilet. Have dinner in the trash can. Disgusting. In the end, I did what Lori told me and started cleaning. Anything I said would just come back at me twice as hard. I figured it'd be easier to comply than to argue, thinking it was only for a few days. Hey, is the house cleaner than usual today? It paid off, and Michelle noticed my hard work, but Charlie just tilted his head, saying, well, the steak is great, Mom, thanks. Since cleaning had taken so much time, I hadn't managed to cook dinner. And so, Lori had ordered steak delivery for the whole family. This steak is way bigger than what we usually have. So, this is what good meat tastes like. The house was clean, and everyone was savoring the luxury steak we never usually got to eat. Everyone looked happy, smiling from ear to ear. It was true that Lori was the one who ordered the steak delivery, but as soon as Lori received the delivery at the door, she went straight back to her room, leaving me to scramble for my wallet. 5 premium steaks. It was a hefty expense. Lori basked in everyone's gratitude, looking quite pleased with herself. Later that night, I explained the truth to Charlie, but he didn't seem to take it too seriously. Hey, she just wants to look good for the kids once in a while, and Ed's coming to pick her up tomorrow, so it's no big deal. Somehow, Charlie had already gotten in touch with his dad. Knowing that this ordeal would end tomorrow gave me some hope. The next morning, Lori was as lively as ever. Selena, I told you yesterday, why are you having cereal for breakfast again? Sorry, everyone here prefers cereal in the morning, but I made soup for you, Lori, so please enjoy it. Lori, clearly displeased, reluctantly accepted it. Selena, what about the housework? Are you making time for the chores? She expected me to do the laundry, vacuum, and mop the floors all before leaving for work. Oh, and don't forget to clean the entrance and bathroom as well. Sorry, but I don't have time in the morning. I'll clean when I get home. I'm heading out now. Wait, Selena. It's sunny today. Hang out the sheets to dry. And Charlie's breakfast isn't ready yet. Are you just going to leave the dirty dishes until the evening again? I'm sorry, I really don't have time right now. The thought of her leaving today made me feel much lighter. Don't be lazy. You'll get sick living in such an unsanitary house. I had cleaned like crazy last night. There was no way the house was dirty enough to cause sickness. Lori kept ranting until I was out the door. I hurried off to work, as if escaping. And then that evening, I came home, hoping that maybe Lori was gone. But unfortunately, Lori was still there. The only difference from the day before was the delicious smell wafting through the house. Welcome back, Selena. You must be tired from work today, Lori said with a smile. It was impossible to sincerely reply with, I'm home. Selena, since you're so busy with work, you can't do the house chores or properly take care of the kids, so I've prepared dinner for everyone. Oh, don't worry about it. After all, I'm staying here, so let me at least cook as a way to say thanks. Lori put on an exaggerated display of kindness. Joseph and Michelle said they wanted spaghetti with meat sauce, so I made it. There was some instant sauce in the cupboard, but you know I have the time, right? So I made it from scratch. Selena, you're too busy to cook something like this yourself, aren't you? I just hope that my homemade taste suits everyone. Why does she have to be so passive-aggressive? Of course, I was thankful she had made dinner, but I just couldn't bring myself to say thank you. Is Charlie going to be late again tonight? Joseph is hungry, so let's eat first. Following Lori's lead, the kids and I sat at the dining table. You don't need to help. You must be tired, Selena. Just sit and wait, okay? In high spirits, Lori was being very helpful. She served the spaghetti with meat sauce to the kids first. Here's your portion, Selena. Thank you. Lori handed me a plate of spaghetti with meat sauce. It was packed with ground meat and looked incredibly rich. The steam rose from it, piping hot. Wow, it looks delicious. I tried to say it looked tasty, but froze mid-sentence. Wait. I rubbed my eyes with the back of my hand. Wait. Is something moving? I muttered to myself. It wasn't the steam. It looked like the meat sauce itself was shifting around. Maybe I was just tired. Thinking my eyes were playing tricks on me, I blinked hard and looked up. And there she was, Lori, looking down at me, meeting my eyes. Selena, please, enjoy my delicious homemade meal. Eat to your heart's content. She stood there, her chin slightly raised, smiling. Her face seemed dark and shadowed, and it frightened me. Let's eat. Joseph's cheerful voice snapped me back to reality. Oh, I forgot a fork. Michelle noticed she didn't have a fork and tried to stand up. But Lori, with that angelic smile, gently spoke to her. Oh, don't worry about it, Michelle. You sit tight. Grandma will get it for you. With a light step, Lori turned around and opened the drawer filled with forks. She seemed to be in quite a good mood, humming a little tune as she did. Now's my chance. Lori's seat was right next to mine. Quickly, I swapped my plate with Lori's. Even though the kids were sitting right there, my body moved before I could think. Joseph sat there in shock at my sudden action. Michelle, still looking at her smartphone, didn't seem to notice. Here you go, forks for everyone, Lori said as she took her seat, handing out forks to each of us. Now, Selena, don't hold back. Enjoy yourself. I made this meal with all my love for you, who works so hard every day. Okay. I wasn't used to a kind Lori, so I couldn't help feeling awkward. Lori clutched her fork in her right hand, not taking her eyes off me. She was definitely expecting something. Let's eat. She was watching closely, trying not to miss the moment I took my first bite of the spaghetti. With her staring like that, it was hard to eat. I glanced over at Lori, and we locked eyes for about 3 seconds. It seemed like she realized she was staring too intensely. Oh, I was just worried if Selena would like the homemade taste. It's restaurant quality, you know. She made an odd excuse, and without looking away from me, wrapped her own fork around the spaghetti. She took a big bite. See, it's so delicious. I really have a talent for, Lori's mouth gaped as the spaghetti fell out. What? Her face, already red from eating, quickly turned pale. In the next instant, Lori went flying backward. It was like something out of a cartoon, with Lori practically flying through the air. It felt as if she'd been caught in some kind of explosion. The suddenness of it all left the kids and me frozen, holding our breath. We were so shocked that we couldn't even reach out a hand to help. Lori landed nearly 3 feet away, trembling on the floor. A bug, a bug. A loud, frantic scream echoed through the room. Right at that moment, the living room door swung open. Standing there were Charlie and Ian. What happened? We heard a loud noise. What they saw was Lori, eyes brimming with tears, desperately trying to explain, while the kids and I sat calmly at the table. It must have looked like a strange scene. Lori seemed unable to stand, dragging herself along the floor to cling to Ian's legs. A bug. There was a bug in the spaghetti. She was pleading frantically. A bug, Ian said with a puzzled look. And then, Michelle reached over to the plate of spaghetti Lori had been eating. Without hesitation, she stuck her fingers into it and lifted up a hidden bug. It's a cockroach. Ew. Michelle, don't touch something so gross. Joseph and Charlie both shouted, turning their faces away in disgust. The bug was completely covered in rich meat sauce. As Michelle lifted it, its legs twitched just a little. It seemed to be barely alive. Well, what is that? How did it get in my spaghetti? Why? Even though I was still confused about what was happening, Lori pointed her finger right at me. Selena, this is your doing, isn't it? With a face twisted in anger, Lori hurled her accusations at me. You put this in my spaghetti, didn't you? How cruel. Even if it's a fake bug, you wanted to scare me, didn't you? Clearly terrified, Lori's anger spilled over as tears ran down her face. She really looked like a victim, suddenly being blamed. Without understanding a thing, I stammered out a minor question. What are you talking about? I mean, a toy. That's a toy. The bug that Michelle held was slick with oil, glistening in a way that was all too lifelike. I didn't want to look at it. My body refused, and my eyes shut tight on their own. But somehow I caught a glimpse of it from the corner of my eye. Yay, it's a toy. Michelle wiped the oil off the bug with a towel without any hesitation. Revealed was a toy bug designed to resemble the much-hated pest, and powered by a simple wind-up mechanism. Upon closer inspection, it wasn't very realistic and looked like something you'd find at a dollar store. It's really a toy. Thank goodness. Even though it was just a toy, it was still disgusting, but I was genuinely relieved that it wasn't a real bug. With a sigh of relief, I ended up blurting out more than I intended. Oh, so a toy got mixed in. Well, the meat sauce that Lori made looked like it was moving, and it creeped me out, so I switched our plates. I'm sorry, Lori, for scaring you. I really had no idea there was a toy in it. Right after saying that, I regretted it and fell silent. Even if it was an impulsive move, swapping the plates because the food seemed creepy, was careless. What did you just say? Ian's voice was cold and low. I'm sorry. I immediately apologized, but Ian's eyebrows shot up. No, Selena, I'm not looking for an apology from you. I want to know if you said that there was a toy bug planted in the meat sauce Lori made. Ian's anger was directed at Lori. What on earth did you do to Selena? His shout echoed through the room, tightening the atmosphere in an instant. No, wait, why? I didn't do anything. Selena is lying. The plate that got pranked was mine, right? I was the one who was affected. See, that means Selena did it. Flustered, Lori tried to prove her innocence, but Michelle shook the toy bug in her hand and asked, "Oh really? Then how did you know it was a toy from the start?" "Grandma, the bug was mostly buried in the meat sauce, and you wouldn't be able to tell at a glance. Everyone else thought it was real." "Well, because, if you were the one who planted it, then it makes sense you'd know, right?" Michelle's flat, disinterested tone made Lori bite her lip. The air felt heavy and suffocating. Tears welled up in Lori's eyes, and she sniffled. "I didn't do it. I didn't." With Michelle Vian and me staring her down, Lori kept pleading her innocence, barely able to raise her voice. It made me think there was a reason she could only whisper. "Oh, I know." Joseph broke the tense atmosphere with an unexpectedly cheerful voice. He clapped his hands like he had a great idea. "Let's check for fingerprints." It seemed like he was about to start a detective game. Now that I thought about it, Joseph had once done a school project on fingerprints. With some powder from cosmetics, you could easily lift fingerprints at home. If we check the fingerprints on this toy bug, we'll know who did it. If we find prints that aren't Sis's, then that's the culprit. Lori, who had been crouching on the floor, suddenly sprang up. She quickly leaped up and snatched the toy bug from Michelle's hand. "Fingerprints, culprit? Oh, don't be ridiculous," she said, handling the gross toy all over. It was an obvious attempt to destroy evidence. Joseph, who had been feeling so clever with his idea, realized there'd be no way to take an accurate fingerprint now and frowned. But Michelle, remaining calm, pointed out, "Actually, I wiped that toy with a towel earlier, so you wouldn't be able to get fingerprints anyway." Lori's face brightened. "Right, exactly, Michelle. So smart, so clever. Come on, let's just drop this whole culprit nonsense. I'm not lying, but accusing Selena. Wouldn't that be, mean, right?" Her words, betraying her nervousness, were practically an admission of guilt, but without concrete proof. It was all just circumstantial. I was starting to think it'd all be brushed under the rug when Michelle spoke again. "It's okay, Joseph. If we want fingerprints, we might find them somewhere else. Maybe the toy's packaging is still in the trash." "Ah!" Lori let out an exaggerated scream. As Joseph moved to open the trash can, Lori stepped in to stop him. No, you can't." "Why not, Grandma? Does it mean you really did something to Mom?" "No, that's not it. But no. No means no." Lori's raw, emotional display made her look pitiful. She probably only meant to cause a little trouble for me, and never imagined it would blow up like this. Standing in front of the trash can, Lori stomped her foot in frustration. Seeing this, Michelle gently held Joseph back. "Joseph, it's a hassle to check for fingerprints, so maybe we shouldn't. But if we don't find out who did it, then Mom." Joseph didn't want to check the fingerprints out of curiosity. He just wanted to prove my innocence. That thought made me happy. As long as my kids believed in me, it didn't matter if anyone else had doubts. Even without fingerprints, we know who did it. Joseph's voice was full of hope. Lori, on the other hand, choked, and held her breath. What? All right then, Michelle said as she reached for her smartphone on the table. I have a video, actually. A video of what? Sweat ran down Lori's face as she reached out a trembling hand towards Michelle. Still in her usual calm, laid-back manner, Michelle swiftly moved away from Lori. What video? Oh, just Grandma laughing while cooking up the meat sauce. Michelle, with a calm confidence, pressed play on her smartphone. Displayed on the screen was Lori, cackling like a wicked witch stirring a cauldron of poison. The Lori in the video wore a smirk that could only belong to a villain. However, the video alone wasn't enough to prove Lori had planted the toy bug. Then, Michelle began playing a second video. No, stop it, that's not true. It wasn't surprising that Lori panicked. The new footage showed her opening the package containing the toy bug. In the video, she appeared to be having a blast, her laughter uncontainable. She pinched the bug's antenna with her fingertips, her face scrunched in distaste. Oh, so gross. Even as a toy, I hate looking at it. Despite her words, her lips curled into a pleased smile. If this little thing popped out of some delicious spaghetti, I wonder what face Selena would make. She might faint from shock. I can't wait to see. She laughed with glee as she gripped the creepy toy bug tightly in her hand. That's when Michelle paused the video. I also filmed you playing around with the toy. And I got footage of the bug moving around in Mom's spaghetti after you served it to everyone. Want to watch it? I don't want to see it. Lori screamed without a moment's hesitation. No. Well, I think this is enough evidence anyway. Faced with an unexpected and thorough takedown by her granddaughter, Lori was at a loss. Embarrassment, shame, and anger seeped from her entire body as she began to cry, hiding her face in her hands. Even as Grandma sat there, curled up and sobbing, not a single person reached out to comfort her. Everyone just stared down at Lori's pitiful form. I've known for a long time that you've been saying mean things to Mom, Michelle said with a bored, uninterested tone. So when you suddenly offers to make dinner after doing nothing to help around the house all these times she's visited, it was suspicious. And that sly grin she had on her face pretty much gave it away. So yay, I thought I should record everything. You know, just in case. Michelle dismissed Lori's plea with a disinterested tone. There was no more room for excuses. Even if some might feel sympathy for the crying grandma, Ian showed no mercy as he helped Lori to her feet. How could you? How could you do something so cruel? Between sobs, Lori cast a hateful glare in my direction. It had been nearly 20 years since Charlie and I got married. All the resentment from those 20 years showed in her eyes. Because she's such an arrogant daughter-in-law. Just because she works, she neglects Charlie's needs. And the house, even when she cleans a little, it's still so messy. Poor Charlie. Lori had been a stay-at-home wife her whole life. To her, I must have seemed like a lazy wife, using work as an excuse to shirk my responsibilities. I just wanted to show you how dirty this house is, that bugs could get into the food. Maybe I went a little too far, but it was all out of concern. I just wanted to help Charlie, living in such an unsanitary place. To Lori, Charlie may have been a grown man with his own family, but he was still her precious son. And in her mind, that precious son was suffering because of a lazy wife. It was Lori's maternal instinct that led to this whole debacle. As Lori shed tears to gain sympathy, Ian let out a big sigh and cradled his head in his hands. This house isn't unsanitary. For a working family with kids, it's actually quite clean. I guess what you want is a house so perfect it looks like a housekeeper lives here. Huh, that was true. Just as Ian said, The in-laws' house always looked as if a professional housekeeper had cleaned it to perfection. Even if Lori was a housewife, her efforts were commendable. Ian's next words, though, were unexpected and somewhat meddlesome. If you think Charlie's house is so unclean it's sad, why don't you go ahead and clean it yourself? What Ian probably intended as a kind suggestion was, in reality, a huge imposition. I hurriedly held up both hands in protest, but what Ian said next made me doubt my ears. Go ahead. Send a housekeeper to this place too. What? Lori's sobbing came to an abrupt halt. She stood there, mouth agape, staring at Ian in shock. What? How? How did you know? It turned out that Lori's impeccable housekeeping was actually the work of a professional housekeeper. Judging by Ian's tone, it seemed like she was the only one who thought she was pulling off the charade flawlessly. Oh yay, Charlie said. I remember sometimes bumping into a lady who Mom called her friend. She'd come over when I got home from school. Now that I think about it, she was probably the housekeeper. No wonder she always had an apron on and greeted me so politely. Charlie recounted how he would occasionally see this woman, who was likely the housekeeper, whenever he came home. He had thought that the house was just extra tidy because Lori was excited to have a guest over. It's costing us a few $100s each month. You handle the finances, but did you really think I wouldn't notice? Sure, I let it go because a clean house feels nice. But what's with your behavior since Ira died? Lori looked stunned. Is it that I'm home now, so you can find time to bring in the housekeeper? Or did you stop because we don't have enough income anymore? Either way, I'm the one who's paying for it. Since Ian retired, Lori had been making him do the housework, complaining about his poor skills. Of course, he could never match the work of a professional housekeeper, and it turned out she was pushing all the chores onto him. Lori's logic was, well, I did all the housework until now, so now it's your turn. The usually quiet Ian endured the housework as practice, but when he finally asked Lori to help out, it erupted into a fight. That's how Lori ended up storming out and landing at our doorstep. Selena, I'm so sorry my wife caused trouble for you. And Michelle, Joseph, I'm sorry you had to go through all of this too. Ian apologized over and over before dragging a sulking Lori away. After they left, an awkward atmosphere hung over our house. Then Joseph broke out laughing. No way. Mom, you have to see this. Curious, we all peered into the trash can where Joseph was pointing. Inside were a few empty packages of meat sauce. They were from a well-known chef's line, the kind sold at the supermarket, but a bit too pricey to buy casually. She just added ground meat and simmered it. I saw her do it. No wonder it tasted so good. No way. Grandma's wild. Whether or not he fully grasped the situation, Joseph burst out laughing. Even Charlie joined in, laughing along. Such a carefree father and son duo. Michelle, on the other hand, stayed calm and snorted. If Grandma wanted to be a perfect housewife, maybe she should have been a perfect mom too. She raised Dad to be all sloppy and carefree. Michelle giggled, and just as she said, Charlie always dropped food while eating, and he tossed his clothes around wherever he pleased. When I pointed it out, he'd just laugh it off. He wasn't a bad person, but it was like taking care of another child sometimes. Then again, I'm not a perfect housewife or mother either. And while Charlie's laid-back attitude sometimes annoyed me, it also helped me stay grounded. After that, Ian and Lori got divorced. The catalyst was something trivial, but Lori stubbornly insisted she was not at fault and refused to have a meaningful discussion, leading to the worst possible outcome. Why divorce? I've always done my best for this family. Having a housekeeper was my way of keeping a proper home. It was all for Ian and Charlie. I did nothing wrong. If she had just been honest and apologized and agreed to work with Ian on sharing housework, their future could have been different. But there was no chance of her barging back into our lives after their divorce. Lori ended up moving back to her family home, where she now lives quite an inconvenient life. Her parents had passed away, so she was taken in by her brother and his wife. The strong-willed wife had Lori doing housework under a strict "if you don't work, you don't eat" philosophy. But that wasn't the only thing that restricted her life. Lori's body had grown weaker, too. One night, Lori called our house, sounding drained from her new post-divorce life. "Is that you, Selena? My life is over, and it's all your fault when you put that bug toy in my spaghetti. Did you know I had broken my leg then? The doctor says it's healed, but it still hurts. I can't even walk properly. Now I'm divorced and can't move my body like I used to. Why do I have to go through this? It's all because of you." At the time of the bug incident, Lori was so panicked she didn't even notice her pain. It wasn't until later that they found the fracture, and even after treatment, she never fully regained mobility in her leg. That said, she could still walk with a limp, and considering her age, at least she wasn't bedridden, which was a silver lining in itself. I'd rather be bedridden. Why do I have to do chores with my bad leg? Just because my great-grandkids are coming over, they have me cleaning the floors. It's too much, too much. Selena, I'm begging you, forgive me, I'll apologize. Her grumbling suddenly turned to whining. It didn't seem like she even knew what she was apologizing for. Your apology is unnecessary. How heartless, Selena. Here I am apologizing to you. Since it was a late-night call, I was tired and hung up coldly. It seemed like Lori was pleading for my help, but she never once said the words "I'm sorry," so I felt no need to help her. The phone rang again shortly after, but I let it go to voicemail and ignored it. By the next day, I had blocked her number. I have no interest in what happened to her after that. While I no longer had contact with Lori, my time with Ian increased. Now retired, Ian would occasionally invite our family over and cook for us. Grandpa's grilled fish is so good. Did you catch this fish yourself, Grandpa? Well, that's impressive. Free from work and Lori's demands, Ian now had all the time in the world to enjoy his new hobbies: fishing, hiking, gardening, and most of all, cooking. At first, I thought housework was way tougher than any job, but once I got the hang of it, it's pretty fun. And seeing Joseph and Michelle eat my food with such joy makes it all worth it. While the house isn't spotless, like a professionally cleaned home, it's comfortable and filled with life, with fish prints adorning the walls. Hey Charlie, it's not like men these days don't have to do housework. You know, you better step up, too. Caught off guard, Charlie choked on his rice. Michelle, Joseph, and I all burst out laughing at his reaction. Hey, I can at least wash some dishes. Charlie, visibly flustered, made me laugh even more. The room filled with the warm, happy laughter of our family. In the dim light of the evening, inside the room, the doorbell rang. I wiped the tears streaming down my cheeks and looked toward the entrance. My mother-in-law, Talia, and my sister-in-law, Jacqueline, stood side by side. Oh, they've come to help. I hurried towards the entrance. Opening the door, I was stunned. Come on, please. Bring them in. Talia's voice directed people who appeared to be movers. Excuse us, we're coming in. And they entered the house. What? Wait, what's going on? Hearing my bewildered voice, my son Joel, who was in his room upstairs, hurried down the stairs. "What's happening, Mom?" Joel asked, watching the movers bustling around. "Well," I turned back to Joel, confused, when Talia and Jacqueline spoke up. "We're taking my son's house. You guys need to leave." "Yeah, that's right. Get out now." Meanwhile, my father-in-law, Neil, efficiently directed the movers, and the boxes were carried into the living room, as well as the other rooms, one after another. Suddenly, Joel, his face turning pale, exclaimed, "No, you can't do that. Don't you know, aunties?" His face was ghostly pale. "This house isn't Dad's anymore, Anne. It's haunted." Neil turned around, and the movers stopped in their tracks. Catching everyone's attention, Joel shook with a tremor. "My name is Jade, 41 years old. My husband, Scott, was a 42-year-old company employee. He had a calm nature and doesn't indulge in alcohol, smoking, or gambling. He worked diligently every day for our family. Scott's hobby was watching movies with me on weekends. Until last year, our son Joel used to join us, but since starting middle school, he preferred spending weekends with his friends over us. While I felt a bit lonely, Scott seemed to find it endearing. He fondly recalled not following his parents' advice to go to a prestigious school, his time as a class representative and student council president, and talked about his high school best friend. "Jackson was your best friend, right? You've always been a top student, haven't you?" I teased. Scott laughed. "If my parents heard that, they'd be outraged," squinting his eyes while reminiscing. "Still, I had a great time in school," he murmured. "Are you having fun now?" I asked while watching a rented DVD at home. "Yeah, I am," Scott answered simply. Then, looking around the living room, "No," he corrected himself. "It's more than fun. It's happiness. We chose and bought this house ourselves. I have a kind wife and a healthy son." His face clearly showing that there's nothing more I want. From the bottom of his heart made me blush. "That's where you say beautiful wife." I swung my arm in mock frustration, and Scott dodged with a laugh. All right. I'm happy with my beautiful wife. All I need to do now is work hard to pay off that mortgage." We were still paying off our home loan. Scott had arranged the loan so that I, a housekeeper, wouldn't need to work. I'm the lucky one to have such a kind husband, I thought to myself, watching the DVD next to Scott. Scott would always say that our married life is happy, but I can't help but think it wasn't quite happy for him back when he was living at his parents' house before we got married. It's apparent to anyone that he didn't get along well with his parents and his sister, Jacqueline. I heard the whole issue started when Scott didn't attend the high school his parents wanted him to go to. Jacqueline, who is 2 years older than him, obediently enrolled in the high school chosen by their parents. She went to college and even got a job at a company her parents approved of, just as they wanted. My sister has become incapable of thinking or deciding for herself. According to Scott, that's how it was. It's easy to just do as your parents say, but then you become a person who can't act without their instructions. You lose the ability to adapt to situations and make your own decisions. As expected, once Jacqueline started working at the company, she couldn't do anything without being told what to do, felt uncomfortable, and quit within a year. Then her parents quickly arranged her marriage to Lance, my brother-in-law. Even though Scott was there, they made Lance their adopted son-in-law and lived with him. To me, it doesn't make sense to adopt a son-in-law when you already have a capable son like Scott. And it's not like Neil's family was that wealthy or anything. Neil was just a regular company employee. I didn't see the need for them to struggle financially to send their kids to a preparatory school. "Ah, that's just my mother and father putting on a show," Scott would say. Apparently, there was a wealthy family living nearby, and their daughter was the same age as Jacqueline. When they were younger, they used to play with the neighborhood kids, but that changed once they started attending preparatory school. Nothing in particular happened between them and that family, but Scott's parents envied that girl and her family. Determined to send their own children to a preparatory school, they saved up diligently and managed to enroll Jacqueline into one. As a result, their dinners were humble, except for Jacqueline's luxurious sandwiches, a rather odd dietary life. Not seeing the need for such a struggle, Scott chose to attend a local high school. I think that was the right decision. But his parents were furious, and from that day, their attitude towards Scott noticeably changed. They used to beam with vanity when mentioning the high school Jacqueline attended. When people would remark, "I bet your son is too," they might have felt embarrassed admitting he went to a local school. But there's no need to dream of a higher standard of living than necessary. The in-laws and Jacqueline's family of 3 kids lived in a rented house. Not that there's anything wrong with renting, but I do wonder if they could have spent their money more effectively instead of just for appearances. They even went into debt to send Jacqueline to a preparatory school and college, and they're still paying it off. I could never understand their way of thinking or their sense of money. This also applied to the allowances given to the kids. The difference in the amount given to Jacqueline's kids and to Joel, our son, was blatantly obvious. It might be a difference in affection for the grandchildren living with them, but I can't help feeling sorry for Joel. It makes me sigh to think that even Joel is affected by this. It seems that they also didn't like the fact that we owned our house. A 2-story single-family home. Our house is bigger than the in-laws'. Showing off with a study, huh? This house is too nice for you. They often came over to our place and made such snide remarks. On top of that, they'd make sarcastic comments like, "Look, there's a stain here," or "the flooring is discolored," and so on and so forth. They would also nitpick. "It's not that impressive after all," they would complain. I really don't see the point of them doing that. If they don't like it, they shouldn't come over. According to Scott, they're just jealous, or so he said. They're envious because they don't have money, and we bought a house, even though we're paying a mortgage. Scott laughed, saying it's all because of their strange habit of keeping up appearances. Lance must have been earning a decent salary. Neil, who was in his 60s, was still working, but their debt repayment was holding them back. "Don't worry about it," Scott said, but Talia and Jacqueline would come over when Scott or Joel weren't around. Lately, they've been walking around our house freely while I prepare coffee. This should be our bedroom. My husband likes this room. This room is spacious. Maybe it could be a study room for the kids? They'd exchange such comments with each other. "What are you doing?" When I finally let my discomfort show, they just smirked and said, "Oh dear, we were just looking around." "Yeah, and you take your sweet time making coffee." I closed the door of the room they were snooping in and had them return to the living room. When Talia asked for a spare key, I felt a bit scared. I couldn't possibly give a spare key to Talia, who walks around someone else's house uninvited. There's a chance she could enter our house when no one is around and rummage through drawers and closets. I thought it was so selfish of them to ask for a spare key when they treated Scott so poorly. I'll have to talk to Scott about that. I dodged the question and had Scott call later to firmly refuse the request. How could you deny a key to your own parents? Talia was furious, but unfortunately, it's his parents who are untrustworthy, so it can't be helped. Anyhow, just come over when either Jade or myself are at home, Scott said, ending the call. Good health is the most important thing. It's a saying we often hear. At this age, I suddenly felt the weight of those words. Scott was diagnosed with cancer. After feeling unwell in his stomach and getting tested, we were lost for words. Each test revealed more cancer spread throughout his body. The doctor said that without surgery, he only had a few months to live. We had insurance, but it wasn't enough. We had to deal with not only the hospital bills, but living expenses and our mortgage too. The happiness we had built fell apart in an instant. I was trembling with fear of losing Scott and the uncertainty of our future. I didn't know what to do and was just scared. I'll ask my parents for help. My parents had already passed away. Being an only child, I had no other family to turn to. Okay, I'll go too. We told Scott's parents, Jacqueline and her husband, about his condition and asked for financial help. Cancer can be treated pretty easily these days, right? Jacqueline didn't seem to grasp the situation. The in-laws were hesitant about giving financial aid, though not as much as Jacqueline. I thought I heard you finished paying off your debt a few months ago. Yeah, we finally managed to. Please, we will definitely pay you back. Lend us the money for the surgery and hospitalization. The money you are going to spend on my education, lend it to us now. Please, I will work too. Please just help us. We begged, going on our knees and crossing our hands together. No way. We've only just started being able to afford some luxuries recently. I have insurance that will waive the mortgage if I die. Should that happen, I'll even sell the house to pay back what we borrowed from you. We'll write a memorandum too. We pleaded again and again. But despite somewhat expecting it, we were devastated when Scott's parents shook their heads, refusing to help. In that case, why don't you just sell the house now? Of course, we knew that might be our only option eventually. But if we were to sell it then, we would have to make sure that the money we make can cover hospital bills, treatment costs, and even the rent for a new place for us after subtracting the remaining mortgage. I heard that before we got married, Scott used to send money home to his parents, even after he had moved out. It seemed only fair that they could spend a little money for Scott now. No matter how much we pleaded, my in-laws and Jacqueline's answers didn't change. Scott straightened his back and replied in a flat voice, "Understood. That's fine." As we were leaving, "Wait a minute," Lance caught up with us. "This isn't nearly enough, and I'm embarrassed to say I don't have any savings," and he handed Scott $1,000. Of course, he wouldn't have savings. He was helping with the debt repayment. Despite their boastful claims of, "We finally paid it off," it was also thanks to Lance. I'll try to persuade them again. Please don't lose heart. We thanked Lance deeply for his kind words. Thank you. Just the thought is enough. But still, do you have a plan? Yes. Like my sister said, we're thinking of selling the house. Really? I couldn't help but exclaim. Selling the house isn't simple. There are many procedures to go through, and it will take time. There wouldn't be enough time for Scott's hospitalization, which was in a few days. Even if we managed to sell it, we would need to find a new place to live. It's not going to be easy or quick. Don't worry. I just remembered someone who might be able to help, Scott said, smiling at me. Scott fought hard with the cancer for 2 years since the diagnosis. Despite being given only a few months to live, We made many happy memories as a family of three, in and out of the hospital. We had grown distant with my in-laws, but when the doctor said he probably can't return home, I contacted them. They visited a few times, but they would just say, "He still looks okay," in a cold manner, and go back home right away. It's as if they were just coming to see how much longer Scott has left. I shook my head, trying to dismiss the thought. Surely not. Contact his family. The doctor said. The time had finally come. I called Talia hastily. Oh my gosh. I need to hurry. Yes, it's urgent. You must come to his room right away. Huh? Oh, okay. I'll come if I can. The call ended abruptly, and I returned to Scott and Joel in the hospital room. Only Lance, who came directly from work, and Scott's best friend Jackson showed up. Scott barely opened his eyes, but looked happy to see everyone before closing them for the last time. Lance and Jackson helped with the funeral arrangements. Lance stayed with Scott while Jackson drove Joel and I home so that we could get ready. It was morning when we left the hospital, but the sun had already started to set. We hadn't even cleaned up after breakfast because we had left in a hurry. I turned on the lights in the dim house in the evening. I sat down in the living room and flipped through a photo album. Tears flowed as I looked through it. I wiped the tears falling onto the table and chose a photo of Scott out of all the memorable photos. The doorbell rang. I wiped the tears from my cheeks and looked at the entrance. Talia and Jacqueline were standing side by side. Oh, they've come to help. Even though they didn't make it in time for Scott's final moments, I hurried to the entrance, thankful they came. But I was stunned when I opened the door. Come on, bring everything in. Talia's voice directed people who appeared to be movers. Excuse us, we're coming in. And they entered the house. What? Wait, what's going on? Hearing my bewildered voice, my son Joel, who was in his room upstairs, hurried down the stairs. What's happening, Mom? He asked, watching the movers bustling around. Well, I turned back to Joel, confused, when Talia and Jacqueline spoke up. We're taking my son's house. You guys need to leave. Yeah, that's right. Get out now. Meanwhile, Neil efficiently directed the movers, and the boxes were carried into the living room as well as the other rooms, one after another. Suddenly, Joel, his face turning pale, exclaimed, No, you can't do that. Don't you know aunties? Joel's face was ghostly pale. This house isn't Dad's anymore, and it's haunted. Neil turned around, and the movers stopped in their tracks. Catching everyone's attention, Joel shook with a tremor. In the midst of all this, a figure comes in through the entrance. What the heck are you doing bringing stuff into my house without permission? Get it out right now. Everyone jumped up at the sound of Jackson's angry voice, which seemed to echo throughout the house, or rather, the entire neighborhood. The movers began taking the stuff they had just brought in back outside, without checking with my in-laws, their customers. Not knowing what to do with the boxes, they just left them on the street in front of the house. No, my desk. I heard my nephew's voice and turned to see Lance standing there with his 3 children. The children, seeing their belongings abandoned on the street, made complaints one after another, while Lance asked Jacqueline, I came over when I heard about the sudden move, but what's this all about? Although Lance is usually mild-mannered, he was furious. What? But Mom said we were moving. What are you talking about? You agreed too. In the midst of an ugly argument between mother and daughter, Lance coldly declared, I can't deal with you all anymore. we're getting a divorce. What? Wait, what are you saying? Lance negotiated directly with the movers to take only his and the children's belongings to his parents' house. Sorry for the trouble at such a difficult time. I'll have them take the kids and our stuff to my parents' place. Without giving Jacqueline a second glance, Lance and the kids left with the movers. Jacqueline collapsed crying on the road, and the in-laws stood dumbfounded among the remaining belongings. The neighbors came out to see what was happening, turning the situation into a nightmare. Can we at least move these inside so they're not in the way? I nodded at his words. Yes, that's fine. This is your house, after all. What do you mean? The in-laws stared at us, confused. This is the truth. The day after being refused financial help by my in-laws 2 years ago, Scott brought home with him a very tough-looking man. That man was Jackson. He ran a real estate business and even gave me his business card. I was told that he was a high school classmate of Scott's. Not only was his face tough-looking, but he had an intimidating vibe, so I couldn't help but imagine that he was involved with shady business. Joel got frightened and clung to me tightly, even though he was already in middle school. I glanced at Scott with concern. Noticing my gaze, Scott tilted his head and then laughed as if he just realized something. It's okay. Jackson might look scary, but he's a respectable member of society now. Now? That's when Joel timidly pointed it out. Jackson's eyes widened, and he smacked Scott's head. Scott was ill, for God's sake. I couldn't believe it, but Scott just laughed heartily. Joel looked so pale that I was worried if he was even breathing. Jackson, you didn't even come to our wedding, even though I sent you an invitation, and you never pay us a visit, even though I invite you over. I suddenly remembered. The name Jackson often came up in Scott's stories about his school days and when he went out drinking. From the stories, he seemed like a good friend, so I never imagined this was the same person. You can see why. My looks scare people, so showing up at your wedding or visiting would just cause trouble. Is that why you're still single? I'll hit you again. I could tell from their light banter that this was indeed the Jackson that Scott had been talking about. I couldn't help but chuckle at their conversation. Both stopped and looked at me. Sorry. It's just that Scott is so excited, like a child. Huh? He's always like this. Jackson, remember, Joel is here too. A father's dignity is important. Dignity, huh? That's something you've never had. Joel's remark lightened the mood. I told Jackson that Scott was really disappointed he didn't come to our wedding and that we want him to visit anytime. Thank you. Now, let's move on to business. We don't have the luxury of time. Jackson's demeanor changed suddenly to a serious expression. First, let me look at the condition of the house. Jackson went around checking each room. Once he finished examining the exterior walls and the meter box, he pulled out his laptop and started typing something. After a while, he showed us the screen. How about this amount for the selling price? I was taken aback by the amount he proposed. It was higher than what we had paid when we bought it. It's a very generous appraisal, but can we really sell it for this price? It's been about 10 years since we moved in, and there would be no point if it doesn't sell. We hadn't renovated it in years. Like Talia and Jacqueline said, there are stains here and there. I heard about that from Scott. They were talking about what they were going to do with each room, right? Yes. That means they think it's still perfectly habitable. Don't worry, It will sell for this price. Full of confidence, Jackson assured us. You can trust him. Scott added. Understood. Please proceed with this price. As I agreed, Jackson quickly spread several documents on the table. Oh, and we need to find somewhere else to live. At my words, Jackson responded, Sure, with a smile. He laid out rental agreement papers as well. First, I will buy this house directly. That solves one problem. Then, I'll rent it back to you. There, the second problem is also solved. Huh? I was taken aback, but Jackson continued, I'll transfer the money from the sale into your account within a few days. From there, we can pay off the remaining loan. Jackson smiled reassuringly. It was a boyish smile that made his earlier intimidating impression vanish. As we filled out the documents, I noticed the rental fee. $100? Both Scott and Joel looked surprised, too, peering over the document. Shouldn't it be $1,000? Scott said. It's a typo, right? And as we laughed, it's not a mistake, Jackson said. What? I owe that much to Scott, after a moment of thought. No, you don't, Scott said. But Jackson told me about their high school days. Jackson was a real delinquent back then. He had been in trouble with the police several times and was often in fights, which left his mother in tears. One day, his mother, a single mom, was hospitalized. She had fainted from stress and exhaustion. Rushing to the hospital, Jackson was shocked to see how frail and small his mother had become. He realized it was his fault and bawled his eyes out like a child. After that, he changed his ways, stopped getting into fights, and stayed out of trouble with the police. But then one day, a cigarette butt was found on the rooftop of the school building. It caught fire in a nearby dumpster and caused a small blaze. This became a problem at school, and they assumed Jackson, who had a bad reputation, was the culprit. No matter how much he denied it, saying, It's not me, no one believed him due to his past behavior. He was at risk of being expelled. When his mother burst into tears again, Scott believed in Jackson's innocence. He was the only one who believed in my innocence. He was the student council president at the time. We were in the same class, but had never really talked before. Jackson reminisced, saying Scott had protested to the principal, did some investigation among the students, gathered evidence, and found the real culprit. But you had insisted you didn't do it, right? Naturally, I believed him. No way. But thanks to you, I graduated high school and gave back to my mother. I even became the president of a company. That's why Jackson said he owed that much. The three of us, as a family, exchanged glances and gratefully accepted the rent proposal. This was what happened that day 2 years ago. As Joel said, I own this house now and am renting it to this family. If you don't believe me, I'll show you the documents later. Jackson glanced at Joel, then turned back to the in-laws with a smile. However, either family is welcome to rent the house. Shall I offer you a bargain? Jackson smiled at my astonishment. I'll also introduce you to new properties. After the funeral, we moved out of the house and into an apartment Jackson had recommended. Just unpack the bare essentials. We'll probably be able to move back to that house soon, Jackson said with a mischievous smile. And I asked him what made him think so. Joel, curious too, came closer to us. I actually thought about kicking them out that day, but then I changed my mind. Listen, here's the plan. Jackson leaned in, as if sharing a secret with us. 3 days later, we went back to our old home saying, we left a couple of things behind, under the pretense that we were retrieving them. Talia reluctantly offered snacks when Jackson joined us. How's the new place? Not bad at all. Neil replied contentedly. Really? Joel asked. Yes, really. No noises from the empty stairs? Or in the shower room? Joel looked around the living room fearfully. Right, Joel said there were ghosts, didn't he? I don't think Mom knows about it, but ever since Dad got hospitalized, I started to hear strange noises. Once, I saw the hem of a skirt on the stairs, thinking Mom was back, but no one was there. That's ridiculous. Talia's words were cut off as Joel and Jackson simultaneously looked upstairs. Is there someone on the second floor? That was impossible. Jacqueline completely lost her vigor after her divorce with Lance was finalized. Although she was silent, she was in the living room. What? Stop with this nonsense. I didn't hear anything. Joel and Jackson exchanged glances and hurriedly packed up. That's good to hear. We'll take our leave then. They rushed out of the house and quickly got into the car. The in-laws, who had come to see us off at the entrance, looked frightened. In the car, we burst into laughter. Jackson's plan was to use the lie about ghosts that Joel had made up on the spot. This is for treating Scott poorly for so long. Where in the world do you find a parent or sister neglecting their dying son and getting ready to move into his house? I couldn't agree more with the words that Jackson spat out while he was driving. Jackson and Joel played such pranks on them repeatedly. Eventually, it was even said that mysterious incidents that neither of them had even mentioned would occur in that house. The in-laws and Jacqueline got creeped out, mistaking the noises in the house for poltergeists. They complained to Jackson and Joel, but we never experienced such things. Jumping to conclusions can be a scary thing, Joel said, laughing. Eventually, the in-laws and Jacqueline couldn't stand it anymore and moved out of the house. They rented a place within their budget, introduced by Jackson. Ah, that was just business. I made sure to find them a decent, budget-friendly old apartment, Jackson said with a sly smirk, and Joel and I applauded. By the way, Jacqueline, after divorcing Lance, had to start working again to pay child support. Seems like she's getting a taste of the harshness of society. I wish her all the best now that she has to single-handedly take care of her parents who had looked after her. Eventually, we returned to the house we bought with Scott. Although we couldn't buy it back, we still live there for a rent of $100. Lance and his 3 kids have started to visit again. Jacqueline seems to be asking for reconciliation, but Lance is not considering it at all. Once a month, Jackson comes over to collect the rent. He times it with Scott's monthly anniversary. After looking at Scott's photo, we have dinner together, and he even listens to Joel's troubles, now a high school student. And Joel and I have a little secret joy. It's the stories about Scott's school days that we hear occasionally at dinner. We hear so many stories that we never knew about, and we learn new things about Scott. I'm sure Scott is smiling with us around the dining table. No way, come on, Scott would say, making childish excuses.
Shut up, you useless. Hurry up and make me some food. My son, Mark, spat those words at me, hurling insults. Oh no, here we go again. Another day in this hellish situation. Thinking that, I tried to make myself small, attempting to escape from his look of disgust. He just turned 24 this year. I struggled to put him through college. And he finally got a job 2 years ago, supposedly becoming a full-fledged adult. He used to be such an adorable and precious son. That is, until this abnormal rebellious phase began. I'm pretty sure it started back when he was in high school. I don't know what he's so irritated about, but the slightest thing that displeases him causes him to shout, yell, and throw things. I kept telling myself it was just puberty and tried not to get too angry, but maybe that was a mistake. Even after the usual period of teenage rebellion had passed, there were no signs of his defiant attitude coming to an end. Well, that's not quite right. It seems his irritation is mainly directed at me. Ever since he started working, he respects my husband Daniel, who became a company executive. He even looks at him with admiration. But the moment he lays eyes on me, he gives me this look mixed with contempt and scorn, full of hatred. I don't know what he hates so much about me, but whenever Daniel is away on business trips, Mark hurls terrible insults at me. How did it end up like this? Where did I go wrong in raising him? As I kept dwelling on those thoughts, I ended up falling ill. I was diagnosed with influenza and went home with a high fever, my mind in a haze. Then I collapsed onto the bed, practically losing consciousness. "Hey, wake up!" A grating shout and violent shaking caused me to groggily open my eyes. His face was twisted in an ugly scowl as he noisily demanded that I make him food. "I have the flu. I'm running a fever, so could you please bring me an ice pack?" I made that request, but Mark just shouted, "Don't mess with me!" and stormed out of the room. I can't believe he won't even grant me this small favor. The moment I had that thought, something poured down on my head from above. "What the?" Looking up in surprise, I saw Mark with an empty bucket in his arms, a malicious grin on his face. Looks like he dumped a bucket of ice water on me. "That cool you down?" He mocked me with those words. Then from behind him, I heard a low, hellish voice. "Hey, Mark. Is that all you have to say?" My name is Nicole. A 50-year-old working woman. I met my husband, Daniel, who is the same age as me, after we started working. We've had our share of arguments, but I think we get along quite well without any major fights. He now serves as an executive at a large corporation and is often away from home due to business trips and meetings. However, I believe he cares about me in his own way. When he is at home, he proactively helps with household chores like a good husband should. From the outside, our home may seem happy, but we had a particular concern weighing on us. It's about our son, Mark, who is now 24 years old this year. His rebellious phase got worse after he entered high school. I've always been a bit introverted, so I guess he doesn't like that about me either. He stopped throwing things or breaking walls, but the moment he sees me, he glares at me as if he's met a hated enemy and hurls harsh words at me. Daniel would get furious when he saw this, so Mark behaves in front of him. But as soon as it's just the two of us, he becomes aggressive, which troubles me. Mark, who has a large build like Daniel, scares me. Cowering in fear of not knowing when he might do something also seems to displease him. In contrast to me, Mark apparently respects Daniel, who deals with things resolutely. Daniel serves as an executive at his company, so he seems to be Mark's role model. Because of this situation, when Daniel notices Mark being hostile towards me, he scolds him, and he apologizes obediently. But it's only superficial. Deep in his eyes, there was always disdain for me. Mark's rebellious phase didn't end even after he became an adult and got a job. With Daniel being away from home more often, I feel like Mark's defiance towards me is growing year by year. "Welcome back. You're late today." I accidentally let those words slip out, and Mark glares at me. "Shut up, you useless woman. I'm working here. It's not an easy job that anyone can do like yours. Don't complain about every little thing." That's the kind of retort I get whenever I say anything. I'm sorry. You're right. I timidly gauge his mood. He probably doesn't like seeing me like this either, clicking his tongue and quickly going to his room. I let out a sigh. Where did I go wrong in raising him? What is it about me that he dislikes so much? For the past few years, I've been agonizing over it whenever I see Mark. I'm home, Nicole. Wow, another extravagant meal today. Returning to the living room while taking Daniel's bag as he came back from a business trip. He smiled happily upon seeing the lavish dinner. It's no exaggeration to say that I prepare these meals to see this smile. To reward Daniel, who is always working hard while enduring the pressure of being a corporate executive, I cook a luxurious meal on days when he comes home. I hand him a cold beer and serve the freshly made soup to soothe his tired body. Just seeing his delighted face makes me feel like all my worries have been blown away. However, my moment of happiness quickly comes to an end. You only buy convenient meals on regular days though. Mark mutters. Indeed, my work ran late yesterday, so I bought some deli food from the supermarket for dinner. But it's not like I settle for deli food every day, as he implies. But Mark dislikes the fact that I always make these lavish meals whenever Daniel comes home. He thinks of me as a detestable mom who hardly does any housework. Due to work on regular days, but puts on a good face only when he is back. He thoroughly despises me, his mom, who appears depraved to him. Hey, Mark. What's with that tone? I didn't say anything. Daniel scolds Mark, who was glaring at the extravagant meal with a look of hatred, but he turns his face away. Daniel sighs and starts eating. This has been going on for years, and he seems to be giving up too. After the meal, Mark quickly moves to the sofa to watch TV. Daniel casually helps with clearing the dishes, but when was the last time Mark helped out? Even when I once asked him to help take out the trash or put away the dishes, I was met with a terrible response. Huh? Why do I have to do that? Housework is a woman's job, isn't it? Even my boss's wife does everything at home. Don't try to take it easy by yourself. Saying that, he threw the garbage bag at me, and I never asked him for help again. No matter what I say, it's futile. Even when Daniel scolded him before, he obediently listened in the moment. But as soon as he knew Daniel was away on a business trip, he went right back to his old ways. He leaves his clothes lying around after taking them off, demands a meal as soon as he gets home, and doesn't even get up from the table. Because he talks back to me no matter what I say, I've stopped saying anything at all. I know this is making Mark even more defiant. But I no longer have the courage to scold him after receiving too many horrible words. Even Daniel consoles me. You don't have to push yourself. Saying. We had completely given up on Mark. Then one day, I felt a chill. I woke up feeling terrible, nauseous and all. I talked to my boss, left work early, and rushed to the hospital near the office. It turned out to be the flu. I reported it to my boss right away and got a week off. Gradually, my joints started aching. I guess the fever was setting in. As soon as I got home, I collapsed into bed and fell asleep. Hey, wake up! Why are you sleeping without making dinner? I was jolted awake by shouting and my body being shaken. Wait a second, Mark. I have a fever. I said that while holding back the urge to vomit, but Mark just yelled louder. Huh? A fever? I don't care. Go make dinner. As Mark tried to snatch away my blanket, tears welled up in my eyes. Stop it! I have the flu. Let me sleep. I managed to say in a feeble, cough-ridden voice, but Mark showed no sign of believing me. The flu? You bullshit. You're just faking it, aren't you? Hurry up and make dinner. I'm starving here. Shivering with fever, I desperately clutched the blanket. Call it a lie, call it malingering, I was in no condition to get up. Through my shaky vision, I realized the fever was rising, just as I expected. Please! Stop it, Mark! I'm not feeling well. Bring me an ice pack. This is how much my own mother is pleading. Even for Mark, I thought he'd at least do that much. But Mark only got angrier at my request. An ice pack? Why the hell should I have to do that? Kicking the side table, he stomped out of the room noisily. God, what a son. His mother is suffering this much, and he can't even bring an ice pack? The tears spilling out felt hot. The moment I wrapped myself in the blanket, ice water was suddenly dumped on me from above. I leapt up. Before I could process what happened, the cold water seeped through my body. What are you doing? Mark grinned at me, shivering satisfyingly. Did that cool you down? Now hurry up and make dinner. As he grabbed my soaked pajamas. A voice that sounded like it crawled out from the depths of the earth rang out from behind Mark. Hey, Mark. Is that all you have to say? Mark jumped as if struck by the voice and spun around. Anthony? Why are you here? The man shoved aside the startled him and wrapped me in a towel he found nearby. It was Anthony Smith, a friend of Daniel's and also Mark's boss. He used to come over to our house a lot, and I doted on him quite a bit since he looked up to Daniel so much. But ever since Mark was born and Daniel's business trips increased, we'd only kept in touch by text. Mr. Smith, He cut me off as I tried to ask why he was here, and laid out a fresh blanket for me. He may not have changed, but I'm surprised he still remembered where we kept the bedding. Laying me down as I grew hazy with fever, he glared at Mark, who stood there ashen-faced. Does he always treat you like this? Huh? No, well... Mark seemed unable to comprehend what was happening. His boss showing up out of the blue, and on top of that, his boss tending to me with practiced ease, it looked like it thoroughly baffled him. As Mark stood there stunned by the sudden turn of events, Anthony began to explain. You see, I owe Nicole and Daniel a great deal. That he was Daniel's friend, that he'd been in their care for a long time. That they continued to dote on him even after they got married. Anthony's admiration for Daniel was so effusive it was almost embarrassing to hear. It made me proud to know Daniel was looked up to this much. I knew you were Nicole and Daniel's son the moment you joined the company as a new hire. Then why didn't you say anything? As like his calculating character, he's probably thinking he could have gotten closer to the capable Anthony. It makes me despair for my own son. I had no intention of mixing personal matters with work. Seeing through Mark's ulterior motives, Anthony stated bluntly. First of all, you'd find it hard to work too if your dad's friend was your boss, wouldn't you? Unable to argue with that, Mark made an awkward face. Mom, did you know Mr. Smith was coming today? Mark accused, biting his lip in frustration. Seeing him like that, Anthony heaved a big sigh. She didn't know. In the first place, I just found out now that Anthony is Mark's boss. The company name I heard from Anthony long ago is different from where Mark works. Maybe they changed the company name at some point. I wasn't sure about Daniel. But I certainly didn't know, and I didn't even think he would come to visit at this timing. I desperately denied it to Mark, who was glaring at me. I shrugged my shoulders, wondering what he thought of Mark's ugly behavior. The other day, Daniel invited me to hang out with him after a long time. He said he wanted to surprise you too. He had just gone on a trip, so he seemed to have brought a souvenir on purpose. Mark awkwardly averted his gaze from Anthony, who was holding up the souvenir in his hand. Just a little while ago, I got a call from Daniel saying he was running a bit late and to go ahead and enter the house. When I was about to ring the doorbell, I heard a scream. Anthony said that when he put his hand on the door, thinking something had happened. The door was unlocked, and he hurriedly entered the house, fearing it might be a burglar or something. I'm sorry for worrying you. It's embarrassing to be seen like this. Breathing heavily, I finally managed to squeeze out my voice, and Anthony hurriedly knelt down beside me. Nicole, please stay in bed. I'm the one who should apologize. So sudden, oh. You really have a high fever. When he readjusted the blanket, his hand must have touched my face. He hurriedly wiped my wet hair again with a towel. Thank you. Actually, it seems I've caught the flu. Anthony's expression turned to one of anger. He turned to Mark and shouted in an angry voice. You threw ice water on her when she had such a high fever. How dare you? Mark was so overwhelmed that he sat down and put his arms in front of his face to protect himself. Oh, what a pathetic son he is. I watched the scene unfold in the corner of my hazy vision, breathing out hot breaths. What? What's going on? In the midst of this, it seemed that Daniel had come home. He peeked into the bedroom after hearing the noisy voices. What are you guys doing? Nicole! What the hell happened? He was surprised by the unbelievable sight of me lying in bed with labored breathing. Anthony shouting with an angry expression, and Mark cowering in fear. To the astounded Daniel, Anthony briefly explained the situation. This idiot, what has he done? An angry shout even louder than Anthony's resounded, and Mark began to apologize while trembling. I'm sorry. She said she wanted to cool down, and I was just hungry so. It's not just. This isn't something you can apologize for. Do you understand? He probably didn't really understand why he was being yelled at. Mark started making irrelevant excuses, and Daniel and Anthony's anger exploded. I'm sorry. Anthony grabbed Mark by the neck as he apologized with tears in his eyes and left the bedroom. I'll beat some sense into him. I'll join you right away. I'm sorry, but please scold him. Daniel replied, and he replaced the wet towel and pajamas for me. He threw the fallen ice into the trash can and tossed the wet bed sheets into the laundry basket. I'm sorry. If I had been more careful. Mark was relatively well behaved in front of Daniel, so he probably never thought he would go this far. I had also been considerate and given up on consulting with him or scolding Mark. It's not just your fault. Sadly, it's our failure as parents. I'm sorry. As I said that while coughing, Daniel bit his lip and apologized again. The way he bit his lip was so similar to his son, despite being so different in character. I wondered how he had grown up to be such a person. Tormented by deep regret, I had fallen asleep before I knew it. Even after I fell asleep, it seemed that Mark was lectured by Daniel and Anthony until late at night. A few days later, Anthony came to visit again and told me about Mark's behavior at work. It turned out that there were rumors that Mark was also harsh on other female employees within the company. His performance was decent, and he pretended to be a nice guy in front of Anthony and other superiors. Just like his attitude towards Daniel. Therefore, perhaps because he was the son of the adored Daniel. They thought the rumors were spread by employees who were jealous of Mark's performance and didn't pay much attention to them. However, after this incident, they changed their minds and immediately conducted a fact-finding investigation, which revealed that Mark had been far more misogynistic than they had thought. Some female employees even cried during the interviews, and his past problematic behaviors finally came to light. I apologize for the trouble he has caused. No, I'm his boss and I didn't notice either. Anthony said that to me when I apologized, but it was clear that our parenting had failed. I was so ashamed and miserable that I couldn't possibly lift my head. Mark was to receive a pay cut, and it seems he went crying to Anthony. But he was flatly rejected as he brought it upon himself. Rather, he was told to fix that twisted mentality of his and was sent to an external training program on morals that was rumored to be quite strict. We ended up having the company follow up on our parenting. I'm sorry to Daniel and Nicole, but I couldn't protect him either. The problematic behavior Mark had been causing due to his misogyny quickly spread throughout the company. And it seems he is being viewed with a very cold eye. It seems that even the other superiors he had been sucking up to have given up on him. And Anthony told me that he is feeling quite miserable. No, I just hope this will make Mark a better person. I know it's impossible to tell you not to worry, but absolutely do not help Mark even if he comes to you for help. As if seeing through my heart as I sighed with worry, Daniel said that no matter how terribly he treated me, Mark is still my son. I also felt guilty for raising him like that. Seeing me so dejected, Daniel kicked Mark out of the house. He declared that he was disowning him and would never let him enter the house again. If I thought about what was best for him, I realized that sometimes tough love was necessary. And I was scolded a little for that, but I finally started to see that it might be true. On the day Mark was kicked out of the house, I'll never forget the tired look on his face and the resentment-filled eyes he gave me. Noticing this, Daniel's anger became even more apparent. And he demanded that Mark return the money he had lent him to buy a new car right away. I don't have that kind of money. To Mark's response, Daniel coldly said, if you can't come up with it, then sell that car and pay me back immediately. With no other choice, it seems Mark had to give up the car. I was later told that the money had been properly transferred. Maybe Mark and I will never truly understand each other. Those were the kind of eyes he had. Until the very last moment he left this house, he looked at me with such bitterness and resentment. After that, it turns out Mark ended up quitting his job. He couldn't handle the rumors spreading throughout the company. Daniel went to check on him and said it seemed Mark was living in an old apartment and working part-time jobs. Mark, who had always lived in his parents' home, was probably paying for utilities for the first time. At first, he apparently tried to keep up appearances as usual, but his savings quickly ran out. One day, perhaps unable to stand that kind of life anymore, he called me when he knew I would be alone. This is all your fault. What mom you are, a woman you are, putting me through like this. He went on and on with his resentful words. Mark is probably a lost cause now. There's no sign of remorse whatsoever. If he had apologized even once, if he had pleaded for help just once, I probably would have lent him a hand without telling Daniel. But now, I just don't care anymore. No matter how much it pained me to give birth to my own child, how can he think I'd be okay with being hated this much? Does he think that just because I'm his mother, just because I'm a woman, he can say whatever he wants? You're pathetic. Get over yourself already. I said that and hung up the phone. The annoying ringtone started ringing again right away, but I unplugged the cord. I've already blocked his number on my cell phone. This home phone was the last connection I had with Mark. And Mark severed that connection himself. After discussing it with Daniel, we decided to move to a new house. Luckily, in this day and age, a couple in their 50s in their prime working years can rent a house of this size anywhere. Even if Mark came to that house starving, it's probably an empty lot by now. Unless Daniel or I contact him, I may never see him again. But that's okay. After a long time, it'll be just Daniel and me, and I look forward to enjoying our retirement in a small room. A faint knock echoed from the front door. I wouldn't have heard it if I'd been in the living room. It was only because I happened to be in the hallway that I caught the sound. Another knock. Through the thick, frosted glass, I could make out a small figure. What was happening? Who was on the other side of the door? Before my mind could process it, my body was already moving. I gently opened the door to find my granddaughter, Amanda, her lips ghostly pale. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" I asked, and she nodded slightly between chattering teeth. As I tried to embrace her for warmth, her body felt so cold it seemed to chill me to the core. No wonder, the weather forecast had said today would be the coldest day of the winter so far. I had a million questions. But first I needed to help Amanda, who was barely breathing. "Robert! Boil some water, quick!" I shouted, and Amanda spoke in a small voice. "Mom is Granny, I need to tell you. Let's get you warmed up first, Amanda. You can tell me once you've settled down." If Amanda knew the way to the apartment, then our daughter Melissa must still be there. We had to go and help her as soon as possible. "Amanda, do you know the place? Robert is getting the car ready, so..." Amanda stared out at the yard, her eyes brimming with tears that spilled down her cheeks in large droplets. "Never mind. Mom is gone now too." She stood up unsteadily, staggering towards the front door. What did she mean, gone? "Wait, Amanda! What happened?" I had no idea what was going on. What had she sensed? "The flower all fell and gone. That means Mom is gone too." Her face was etched with despair. A single camellia blossom from the yard had dropped onto the snow. It was the same moment that Buddy, our golden retriever, had taken his last breath. It wasn't illness, but a peaceful, natural death. My granddaughter Amanda wept uncontrollably. For us too, Buddy had been a cherished part of the family for 10 years, so the grief cut deep. Buddy was smart and had been very close with Amanda. They were like true siblings. So I couldn't tell her to stop crying now. You can't say something like that to a 4-year-old in the first place. Amanda apparently cried nonstop for the next 3 days. A year passed since Buddy's death, and Amanda turned 5. Robert, now retired, was at a loose end and threw himself into cooking. Perhaps thanks to his efforts, I too have more free time and can spend relaxing days. Our daughter Melissa still often brings Amanda to visit us at the family home. I'm struck by how much Amanda has grown. When the two of them visit, Robert enthusiastically whips up meals. He absolutely adores seeing Amanda's delighted face, he says. He's completely smitten with his granddaughter. However, there was one thing that worried Robert and me. "Kevin, how's he doing these days?" "Yeah, he's fine. Anyway." Once again, she brushed off the question with a transparent excuse. The reason Robert deliberately asked about Kevin was that Melissa's husband never accompanied them on visits. And Melissa would react with fierce rejection whenever the topic came up. Living in our own peaceful bubble, I couldn't help but worry about our daughter's home life. Could they be experiencing some kind of harassment? Strangely, once that thought took hold, the flood of negative speculations and premonitions became unstoppable. There are no visible wounds or bruises, but could it be violence? The doubts accumulated gradually, like the snow that fell last winter. Then one evening, while cleaning up the kitchen he had used, Robert casually brought up an idea. "Hey, next time Melissa and Amanda visit, how about I take Amanda out to play, and Stephanie, you can try talking to Melissa while we're gone." Robert was the first to suggest investigating. Amanda, who adores her grandpa, would gladly go out with him without any suspicion. With both father and daughter absent, leaving two mothers in similar positions alone together, Melissa might feel more inclined to open up. If she still stubbornly refused to talk even after going to such lengths, then there must be some unsavory circumstances she's hiding. It was an ingenious plan. Got it. I'll leave Amanda to you then. A few days later. Amanda, want to go out just the two of us? I want to go. Mom, can I? Is that okay, Dad? Yeah, you two take it easy for a change. All right. Well then, I'll leave her in your care. Amanda, be on your best behavior, okay? I will. Stage 1 of the operation passed without a hitch. Granted, Melissa showed a hint of suspicion at the sudden proposal but seemed unable to find a reason to refuse. Melissa, is there something you want to talk about? I poured 2 cups of instant coffee and set them on the table. Cutting straight to the chase, I asked bluntly. So that's why you took Amanda out? Well, I appreciate it anyway. Melissa appeared somewhat resigned. Or perhaps exhausted. After a brief pause, Melissa's complexion changed drastically as if she had aged a decade in an instant. I couldn't help but exclaim. What happened? I really didn't want to talk about it, but... Melissa had married a man named Kevin 8 years ago. They were introduced by a mutual friend. When he came to the family meeting, he made a good impression, and the two seemed to get along very well, which put my mind at ease. Until they had a child, both worked to support their small household. They were so busy that they rarely showed their faces at our home. That began to change after their daughter Amanda was born. Melissa quit her job to become a housewife and focus on childcare, but apparently, that was the catalyst for his attitude to deteriorate day by day. It started with complaints about her leaving her job, but now it has escalated into increasingly harsh and scathing verbal abuse. From what I heard, it's not hard to imagine he seems on the verge of becoming physically violent. Changing for the worse after marriage. It's a story I've heard of happening occasionally. But it seems that wasn't the case for our daughter and son-in-law. It undoubtedly began after Amanda was born. However, he has never harmed Amanda in any way and appears to be a normal father in that regard. He won't even tell me what he's so dissatisfied with, so I have no idea. Being in that house makes me think about those things. That's why I've been coming here more often. I felt my heart crushed with misery. Why couldn't I see it? Why did Melissa have to endure such pain? The surging emotions choked my throat. No matter how much I thought about what to say, I remained trapped. Only when I took Melissa's hand could I finally speak. Thank you for telling me. It's going to be okay. We're here for you. When you go back today, pack your things right away and come to our house, both of you. You don't have to force yourself to stay with him. But I can't prepare the money right away. We have some savings, so that can come later. The priority now is to get you away from him. As I said that, Melissa shed a single large tear. Welcome back, Amanda. Robert, did you get lost? We were fine. I wondered if Amanda was aware of the situation. Now, and even before, it didn't seem that way, but this child has a brave and resilient personality. So perhaps she's putting on an act to avoid worrying us. Maybe she's just pretending to be okay. What a terrible story. But that's all the more reason we have to act now. I couldn't allow my precious daughter and granddaughter to be exposed to such fierce storms any longer. After sending Melissa and Amanda home, I explained the situation to Robert, and he nodded, saying, "That's the best thing to do." He was so furious that he looked ready to rush over and beat Kevin up right then and there, but I managed to calm him down. I don't know what he's thinking, pulling this nonsense. However, the two of them never showed up, no matter how long we waited. As 2 hours, then 3 hours passed, my anxiety grew ever stronger. Melissa and her husband live in the same state as us, and while it's a bit far, it's not an impossible distance to walk. It certainly doesn't take 2 hours of walking. Could they be out shopping before coming to stay with us? Even so, there's no word from them. Finally reaching my limit, I tried calling, but no matter how many times it rang, the call never connected. Wait here, I'll go check on them first. If it was going to turn out like this, I should have driven them. 15 minutes after driving off, Robert, who had said those words, called me. Stephanie, contact the police. There's no one in this house. Did he realize something, or had he been planning this all along? To this day, I don't know, but Kevin disappeared somewhere, taking his wife Melissa and daughter Amanda with him. Robert, I've told you many times. The police can't investigate for something like moving without notice. We'll do what we can, so please go home for now. I thought the police refusing to act in situations like this was something that only happened in fiction. I never imagined we'd actually be dismissed. Come on, detective, I'm begging you. This is clearly a missing persons case. My daughter and granddaughter have been kidnapped. What else could it be but a crime? With the evidence being just one complaint, there's nothing we can do. I'm not saying we won't do anything. We'll do what we can. I could vaguely sense that saying anything more would be futile. And I couldn't say they were completely neglecting us. Robert, let's go home. There are other ways. If the state won't act, then we'll get individuals to act. It's not that I don't feel any frustration, but I could somewhat understand what they were saying. Indeed, it doesn't seem like the police will act with just that. I'll pay. You'll find them, won't you? Yes, it's our duty. We'll gladly lend you our assistance. Now, can you tell us the details? While I didn't want to believe the police wouldn't act at all, I also didn't think they'd fully commit, so as a last resort, we turned to private investigators. Fortunately, they were very positive and asked for various pieces of information. I explained in detail the little I had heard from Melissa that day. That said, there was only so much I could tell them. After all, as the police had said, I too had only heard a single complaint. Then, a month passed without any developments. Winter had truly set in, and some days even brought snow. Were Melissa and Amanda safe? The winter we spent unable to even know that much was colder than any winter before. On a day when snow quietly fell from gloomy clouds. No matter what I did, I couldn't focus, but doing nothing was just as unsettling. As I restlessly cleaned the house, I felt as if something was calling to me and paused for a moment. Knock knock. I surely wouldn't have heard it if I'd been in the living room. It was only because I happened to be cleaning the hallway that I caught the faint knocking at the front door. Knock. Through the thick frosted glass, I could see a small figure. What was happening? Who was on the other side of the door? Before my mind could understand, my body was moving. Gently opening the door so as not to knock over the small shadow, there stood Amanda, her lips ghostly pale. What's wrong? Are you okay? Amid the chattering of her trembling teeth, Amanda gave a small nod. Cold. I need heat. When I embraced her to warm her up, Amanda's body was so cold it felt like it would chill me to the core. No wonder, the weather forecast said today would be the coldest day of the winter so far. Robert! Bring some towels and blankets. I had a million questions. But before that, I had to save Amanda, who was barely breathing. And boil some water too. Got it. Mom is. Granny, Amanda, I'll tell you. First things first, Amanda. Tell me once you've properly warmed up. I brought Amanda right in front of the stove and wrapped her in a blanket. Looking outside from the living room, I could see snow starting to accumulate in the yard. Feeling a bit warmer? Yeah. But Mom is. Can you talk? Will you tell me? Amanda began speaking in fragments. According to her, when they got home that day a month ago, Kevin was already there. He then forcibly took them to a room in a different apartment, not their own home, and kept the two of them confined there. It was somewhere in the state. And Amanda had memorized the route from there to our house during walks with Buddy, which is how she managed to make it here. What a clever, brave child. No, this isn't the time to be impressed. If Amanda knows the way to the apartment in question, she must still be there. We have to hurry and rescue her. Amanda, do you know the place? Robert is getting the car ready now, so. Amanda stared out at the yard. Large tears overflowed from her eyes. Never mind. Mom is gone now too. Amanda stood up unsteadily, staggering towards the front door with faltering steps. What did she mean by gone? Wait, Amanda! What's wrong? Lashing myself for being dumbfounded, I sprang up and forcefully caught Amanda in an embrace. But I had no idea what was going on. What on earth had she sensed? All the flour is gone, so Mom is gone too. Amanda's face was etched with despair. I somehow got the sobbing Amanda into the car and reluctantly asked her for directions. Right now, she is the only person who knows Melissa's whereabouts. Feeling impatient, I slowly drove the car for over 30 minutes to get directions from her. She had walked this distance all alone, so the terror she must have felt is immeasurable. Here. Amanda pointed with swollen eyes. What lay ahead was a terribly run-down apartment complex. Wait here, I'll go check. Robert leapt out of the car, a deck brush in one hand as a precautionary means of self-defense. Left in the car, all I could do was hold Amanda and try to calm her. Less than 5 minutes later, there was a rough bang. Wondering what happened, I looked at a room in the old apartment and saw that Robert had apparently slammed the front door, and in his arms was Melissa's limp form. I hurriedly opened the rear door. Mom! Melissa! It's okay, Amanda. She still has a pulse. But she's unconscious. I've already called the ambulance, so for now we have to warm her up. The car's heater was cranked up excessively. While not as much as Amanda had been a short while ago, Melissa was also thoroughly chilled. She seemed to be gradually recovering, but it was still worrying. 10 minutes later, the ambulance arrived, and I felt the tiniest bit of relief. While Robert explained the situation to one of the paramedics, the others carried Melissa into the ambulance. That's when it hit me. Amanda had been in the same place this whole time too. Please examine this child too. She was in the same place until just now. I can't drive, so I got into the ambulance to accompany the two of them. Robert followed behind the ambulance in the car. The next day, with the situation taking a major turn and actual harm done, the police finally got off their asses. At this point, Kevin became a suspect in a kidnapping and confinement case, officially pursued by the police. At first I felt anger at their inflexibility, which eventually turned to exasperation, but seeing them act at this stage made my anger surge again. In any case, once they get moving, it's only a matter of time before the truth comes to light. Melissa is still unconscious, but her condition itself seems stable. Amanda was also hospitalized for malnutrition and is currently on the road to recovery. But the psychological damage inflicted on her young mind is immeasurable. I tried contacting Kevin again, but it was completely impossible to reach him. It's only natural. According to Robert, the room was empty except for several boxes, a small table, an old heater, a dirty blanket, and a few other items. It was utterly lacking in the necessities for human habitation. And yet, my daughter and granddaughter had spent a whole month there. What was he thinking, suddenly disappearing with his wife and child, only for him to be absent from the scene? The police said there were only traces of 2 people living in that old apartment room. And even that was below the bare minimum, especially regarding meals. They likely didn't have enough to eat properly. In other words, Kevin had disappeared with the intention of confining the 2 of them in the old apartment for some reason from the start, while he himself observed from somewhere without getting involved. Regardless of his true intentions, he was the lowest of the low. 2 days after finding Melissa, she somehow regained consciousness. She still seems to have difficulty moving on her own, but she's recovered enough to sit and talk. Finally, we may see some light shed on the full picture of this incident. Can you tell me what happened that day? At first, she remained silent, but after a short pause, she began speaking hesitantly. When I got home, he was waiting. He took my smartphone and wallet. Then I was put in the car and taken to that apartment. After cutting off her means of external communication, he pressured her to work. The intensity of his actions at that time was so overwhelming that it made her chest tighten just recalling it. However, the only work that could be done in such a place was a side job at best, and even the meager income she earned was mostly taken from her. Why didn't you escape? If you had wanted to, you could have left that place any time. In fact, Amanda had somehow managed to escape to our house when she saw an opening, though we still don't know the details. It was a place with absolutely no security. Of course, it's not that I didn't think about it. But he made it clear, like driving a nail. It's pointless to run, and if you do, I won't show mercy. So, when I thought about something happening to Amanda, I couldn't move. There seemed to be no direct violence, but the fact that he had taken away their freedom and even threatened them made it decisively a crime. How could he? Do you have any idea why? To be honest, it pained me. This was like asking if Melissa had even the slightest reason for what happened. But I didn't know what else to ask. Yes, there were so many things I didn't understand about the whole situation. His attitude changed around the time I quit my job to focus on childcare, so considering that, I can only think he really wanted me to work. It's okay. You did nothing wrong. It seems difficult to determine the cause. Then we have no choice but to investigate his true intentions by other means. So, do you know where he is? The police are apparently looking for him too, but they don't seem to have any leads so far. It's embarrassing to say, but we don't have much in savings, so I don't think he's at a hotel or anything like that. If he's not at home, he might be crashing at a friend's place. My instincts told me this would be important testimony. Got it. I'll tell the police and private investigator later. And the day before yesterday, Amanda said you had passed away. I'm glad it wasn't a serious illness, but why would Amanda say that? I probably let a cold get out of hand. I haven't been able to stop coughing for a week. We're not eating properly, so things that should heal don't, you know? Melissa smiled wryly in exasperation. Amanda, how are you feeling? Can you talk to Granny for a bit? Okay. How did you get out of that room? Dad wasn't there. If he's not there, you can get out. As expected, she is brave. I felt sorry for her, but more than that, I was proud. And there was one more thing I wanted to ask. It wasn't directly related to the incident, but it was something I was personally very curious about. Why did you say Mom was gone the day before yesterday? Because the red flower fell. That's how Buddy went away. It seemed this child believed that when a camellia blossom falls, someone dies. Indeed, the way the entire flower falls from the base is distinctive, so even as a child, it's not hard to understand why she would think that, looking back now. Buddy passed away around the end of winter. It was the season when camellias fall. I see. So that's what it was. That's not that kind of flower. It's okay. Mom is alive, right? Yeah. With a small nod, Amanda shed tears again. Without asking why, I embraced her. This time, there was no feeling of freezing. Grandpa, Granny, thank you. For saving Mom. Not at all. Everything was thanks to her bravery. No, it's thanks to you, Amanda. I should be thanking you. 3 days after Melissa and Amanda were taken into protective custody, we received news that Kevin had been arrested. I placed a hand on my chest in relief and stroked it. As Melissa had said, he had been hiding out at a friend's house. But while it would be one thing if it were just a friend, apparently that friend was a woman, and the fact that they had an inappropriate relationship also came to light at the same time. More importantly, Amanda's health had completely recovered, and she returned to being the cheerful Amanda she used to be. Melissa also recovered steadily without any serious issues. When I told her about Kevin's arrest, the light seemed to return to Melissa's face. Now, there's no need to face that fear anymore. The court issued a restraining order, but that alone isn't enough to feel safe. So my husband and I, along with Melissa and Amanda, moved to the suburbs away from the city center. It's been almost 6 months now. And as another big change, we decided to take in a new red-haired golden retriever. Amanda named him Teddy. It seems she couldn't forget about Buddy after all. Amidst the lush greenery, the sister and brother, one human and one dog, run around energetically in the yard that has doubled in size. Fortunately, Teddy's personality is just like Buddy's, who could be called his predecessor, and he's very attached to Amanda. It's such a heartwarming sight that I almost let out a sigh without thinking. I'm home. I'm home. As dusk approached, Robert and Melissa returned from the courthouse. With the siblings playing in the yard out of the corner of my eye, I was finally able to hear the details from the two of them. The crimes Kevin was charged with were mainly false imprisonment, coercion, and abandonment of a person in one's care, and he was sentenced to 7 years in prison. To be honest, considering all the things he did, I felt that wasn't enough. I even wish he would never come out. The reason he forced Melissa to work was simply because he wanted to take it easy himself. For such a trivial reason, he plunged his wife and child into terror, utterly lacking any sense of morality or ethics. And my anger was also directed at ourselves for not seeing through him. Regarding the woman who had been sheltering Kevin, the point of contention seems to be whether she was aware of the secrecy, but at least for me, it didn't matter. In any case, we've now moved to a peaceful place surrounded by nature, and the 4 of us plus 1 dog are starting a new life. The wounds we've suffered won't heal so easily. But Amanda plays with Teddy both inside and outside the house, and Melissa is starting to return to her original cheerful personality. Not everything is going smoothly, but I really like this life. When we moved, we brought the camellia tree we had planted in the yard to our current home. It took a lot of effort, but this tree is a commemorative tree for our daughter, so we couldn't make the decision to leave it behind. Now it's the height of summer and there's no sign of it, but when winter comes again, it will surely bloom with beautiful, magnificent flowers. And even if the seasons change and those flowers eventually fall, I'm sure she won't cry anymore.
It happened on the way to visit Mom's grave. Are you okay? It's hot. You must be tired. Vincent, Mom's remarried partner, asked me with concern in his voice. He was carrying flowers to place on the grave and was looking around for a spot where we could rest. No, it's not that I'm tired, I replied, glancing at Vincent as if urging him to keep moving. But suddenly, he hugged me. My face was pressed against his chest, and I could barely breathe. Panicked, I tried to pull away. Stop it. What are you doing? Standing in the middle of the road like this, anyone passing by would surely get the wrong idea. Vincent was supposed to be a serious man. So what was he thinking? Fear started to rise inside me, and just as I was about to scream, he whispered quietly enough that only I could hear. Keep still, don't move. Do you see those two people on the sidewalk across the street? I peeked over Vincent's shoulder, following his words, and glanced across the road. On the opposite sidewalk, I saw a face that was all too familiar, and it startled me. What? That's the woman's walk, her posture, her back, it was unmistakable. Next to her, a man walked alongside her, though I couldn't see his face. They didn't seem to notice us, and the two of them got into a cab, looking quite comfortable with each other. Why is she here? My emotions and thoughts raced. Unable to keep up, my heart pounded, and my vision started to blur when I heard someone calling me. Get a hold of yourself. I snapped back to reality. At that moment, all I could remember was who was standing in front of me and where I was. My name is Megan. I left my job when I got married, and now I'm a housewife. My husband, Kevin, isn't a morning person and often sleeps right up until it's time to leave for work, so waking him up has become my daily routine. Even before we got married, when we were just living together, if I didn't wake him up, he would stay in bed forever. Let me sleep a bit more. I thought I had the day off. What are you talking about? It's Monday. After nearly 10 years of this, I realize how fast time has flown. We don't have any kids. Sometimes, when I see families with children, a small part of me aches. But Kevin and I talked about it, and we made our choice together. So I don't regret it. Now we live modestly but contentedly. After I finally get Kevin up and send him off to work, I go about my day doing the laundry, cleaning the house. Today is the day Mom is coming over. She raised me on her own, and we lived together until I got my first job. Dad passed away in an accident when I was still very young. Mom was always there for me, helping me with everything: school troubles, career choices, boyfriends. Because of that, we've grown incredibly close, to the point where she feels more like a best friend than just my mother. Even after I got married, nothing changed. We still find time to have lunch together or visit each other's homes. I glance at the clock, sensing that she'll arrive soon, and begin preparing coffee and some snacks. I bring out the financiers I bought, famous for pairing perfectly with coffee. But still, I wonder what this is about. I couldn't help but think about the message Mom sent me a few days ago. I have something to talk to you about, she wrote, unusually formal for her. She normally doesn't phrase things like that. It seems like there might be something serious she wants to discuss today. Before long, the doorbell rings, and I instinctively know it's her. I open the front door. Mom, come on in. I start to greet her, but freeze in place, stunned. Of course, it was Mom standing there, but next to her was a man I didn't know, with a kind expression. The man, who looked about the same age as Mom, greeted me with a hello. I had only prepared 2 coffee cups. This realization flashed through my mind in an instant, but I quickly gathered myself and invited them both inside. Hurrying to set out 3 cups, I sat down with them at the table. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the living room. As I settled in to listen, I was shocked to hear that the man was Mom's boyfriend. Sorry for the surprise. My name is Vincent. Alex has told me all about you, Megan. Alex is Mom's name. Nice to meet you. I'm her daughter, Megan. I almost bit my tongue from the nervousness. This was the first time I learned that Mom was seeing someone. Still grappling with the concept of mom's boyfriend, I stared at Vincent. His eyes reminded me of Dad's, and for some reason, that made me feel at ease. After talking about how they met and some of their hobbies, the atmosphere in the room suddenly shifted. Mom and Vincent were both looking at me. Actually, Megan, I'm thinking about marrying Alex, and today I wanted to talk to you about that. The suddenness of it all left me speechless. I'm sorry for not saying anything until now, but I've been considering, well, remarrying. This was the first time I had ever heard Mom express such a thought. She had never dated anyone while raising me, devoting herself entirely to balancing work and taking care of the house. And I was so grateful to her for putting me through college while managing it all on her own. Of course, I had no reason to stop them from getting married. I'm surprised, but I'm happy for you. I don't think it's my place to stop your happiness. So you're okay with us being together? Of course. Please take care of Mom. Megan, thank you. Mom's eyes filled with tears, and I smiled at her. You always cry so easily. Whether it was when I entered high school, university, started my job, or got married, she always cried tears of joy for me. But this time was different. Finally, she was crying tears of happiness for herself. I wanted nothing more than for her to find her own happiness. A few days later, we had dinner together, Mom, Vincent, Kevin, and me. Vincent mentioned that he loved collecting leather goods, like book covers, wallets, and bags. Kevin, who also had an interest in leather accessories, hit it off with Vincent at the table. I retired at 65. I used to work as a government employee, Vincent said with a nostalgic smile. Looking at him, I couldn't help but feel like I was seeing a glimpse of Dad. It was a strange feeling. If Dad had been alive, would it have been like this? From that point on, Vincent not only cared deeply for Mom, but also for Kevin and me. Kind, almost overly sweet. He always made sure to check in on us. Because of him, we spent more time together as a family, growing closer over the months. However, it seems that after moments of joy, something bad often follows. A few months after Mom and Vincent's wedding, Kevin started coming home late more frequently, citing overtime. It's the busy season. There's nothing I can do about it, he said. He had been working at the same company for years, and never before had this time of year been especially busy. Really? Yeah, there's a new project starting, and there's just so much urgent work piling up. It's frustrating. With that, Kevin retreated to his room, his tone dismissive, almost like he was hiding something. I felt uneasy about the way he seemed to be covering something up. One humid evening, the news forecasted late-night rain. I waited for Kevin to come home. Even at 12 a.m., there was no sign of him. What's going on? Maybe he was waiting out the rain somewhere, but it didn't make sense that he hadn't responded to any of my messages. No matter how late, he always made it home in time for dinner. Calling the office wasn't an option, and either it was far too late, and no one would be there. I waited in the living room, and at some point, I drifted off to sleep. When I woke up, the sky outside was faintly light, and the clock showed 5 a.m. My neck and back ached from sitting in the chair all night. Had Kevin come home? Peeking at the front entrance, I saw Kevin's umbrella, soaking wet, left by the door. He had come home after all. If he came back, he could have woken me up, I thought to myself, though I still got up as usual to wake Kevin and send him off to work. From that day on, something about Kevin felt different. He started coming home later and later, and when he did, he wore a permanent scowl. He'd speak to me in grumbled, half-muttered phrases, brows furrowed. If I had done something wrong, I would have apologized, but nothing came to mind. This continued for a while until I finally worked up the courage to ask him directly, "Why are you so angry all the time?" Kevin sighed in frustration, as if my question annoyed him. "It's nothing." "It's not nothing. You've looked upset for weeks. You've got it easy. You're a housewife. You just get to stay home all day. What? Deep down, you're looking down on me, aren't you?" I had no idea what he was talking about. Before I could respond, Kevin turned away and locked himself in his room. I was left confused and unable to make sense of the sudden change in him. It didn't feel like it was just about work stress. Even though I tried multiple times to talk things out with him, Kevin rejected every attempt. "Shut up, just leave me alone, you wouldn't understand." His words felt like a slap, pushing me further away. Gradually, he started waking up on his own before I could go wake him, skipping breakfast and rushing out the door. I'd be left alone in the living room, staring at the untouched breakfast for two, feeling a deep sense of emptiness. Though he never physically hurt me, he would slam doors with force, throw objects in moments of frustration, and his sudden outbursts terrified me. I was living in fear of him, this man who no longer resembled the Kevin I knew. I couldn't bring myself to tell Mom or Vincent I didn't want to worry them. So I endured it in silence, alone. Day after day, night after night, I found myself wishing that morning would never come. But the mornings did come, and with them, more days of silence, more tension between me and Kevin, more moments of being unable to recognize the man I had married. It was a cloudy afternoon, with the threat of rain hanging in the air. I was about to eat the last of the cookies from before when the doorbell rang. When I opened it, there stood Vincent, his face pale as a ghost, beads of sweat trickling down his forehead. Vincent and Mom's house was just a 10-minute walk away, but he seemed to have run all the way here. He was panting heavily, gripping a piece of paper tightly in his hand. I invited him in, made some coffee, and waited for him to calm down. "What's wrong? What happened?" I asked when he seemed to catch his breath. Vincent, still shaken, began, "I know it's hard to believe, but..." He hesitated, then said, "Alex has disappeared." "What? Disappeared, gone missing, vanished without a trace? But why would Mom suddenly do something like that? That can't be true. Mom's not that kind of person," I shot back, unable to contain my disbelief. "There's no proof. How can you say something like that?" "Wait," Vincent said, holding up the crumpled piece of paper he had been clutching. "Here's the proof." He handed me the note. The paper was wrinkled and torn from how tightly he had been gripping it. It was a letter, written in Mom's handwriting. "To Vincent, I'm sorry for the suddenness, but I've decided to go on a journey." It read. As I continued to read, my hands started trembling uncontrollably. Half of the letter expressed gratitude toward Vincent and me, while the other half discussed financial matters and funeral arrangements in meticulous detail. "Please don't try to find me. Take care of Megan for me." The letter ended with Mom's signature. What is this?" "This looks like a suicide note." Before I could finish my sentence, Vincent nodded slowly, as if understanding exactly what I was about to say. "I know what you're thinking, but I don't want to believe it. I'm sure she's still out there, somewhere alive," he said, almost as if trying to convince himself. "And besides, she didn't explain why she needed to leave. Why leave a note like this and not say why?" He was right. Though it looked like a farewell note, there was nothing in it that explained why Mom would leave. Why would she just disappear like this? "We have to find Mom, no matter what," I insisted. That very day, Vincent and I went to the police station and filed a missing person report. Maybe, just maybe, we could find her if we kept looking. With that small flicker of hope, we searched everywhere she might be. We visited the park, where we had many memories, and the supermarket Mom often went to. We spoke with neighbors, friends, and acquaintances, leaving no stone unturned. We even put up missing person flyers, retracing our steps like something out of a crime drama. But no clues surfaced, and as reality sank in, all I felt was growing anxiety and frustration. One evening, the three of us, me, Kevin, and Vincent, sat around the dinner table in silence, as if the life had been sucked out of the room. It was Kevin who finally broke the quiet. "How long are you going to keep doing this?" he said, his voice laced with irritation. "The letter said not to look for her, right? If that's what Alex wanted, maybe we shouldn't keep forcing it." "What are you talking about? That's cruel. Haven't you looked enough?" You haven't found anything. Maybe it's time to file a death certificate or something." I was speechless. It wasn't a certainty yet, but deep down, both Vincent and I had started to entertain that very possibility. Kevin's harsh words made us confront it head-on. We contacted the police again, but they had no updates, no new leads. After several discussions, we reluctantly decided to treat the day Mom disappeared as the day of her passing and filed the death certificate. It was heartbreaking. I couldn't stop thinking about whether there was something I could have done before Mom disappeared. But no matter how much I agonized over it, she was gone. Once the paperwork was finalized, we arranged for a gravestone at a nearby cemetery, and it became our custom to visit every year. On the second anniversary of Mom's disappearance, Vincent and I were walking to the cemetery together. Kevin had left on a business trip the day before, so it was just the two of us. His cold, distant attitude hadn't changed. I found myself looking down as we walked, my feet heavy with the weight of everything that had happened. Seeing me like this, Vincent looked worried and asked, "Are you all right? It's hot today, you must be exhausted." He was holding the flowers we brought for the grave, glancing around for a place we could rest. Had I worried him too much? "No, it's not that I'm tired," I replied, trying to reassure him. I looked at Vincent, ready to urge him to keep walking, when suddenly, he hugged me tightly. "Stop it, hey." My face was pressed against his chest, making it hard to breathe. I panicked and tried to pull away, but his strong arms wouldn't release me. Vincent had always been serious and considerate, and more importantly, he was Mom's husband. He had never done anything like this before, and there was no reason for him to now. What if someone saw us? Anyone would misunderstand. What was he trying to do? Fear started to creep in, and I was about to scream when he whispered urgently, just for me to hear, "Stay still, don't move. Look across the street, on the sidewalk. Do you see those two people?" "What?" I cautiously peeked over Vincent's shoulder and looked where he directed me. The street wasn't busy, and across on the other sidewalk, I saw people walking. Among them, I noticed a familiar figure pass by. Mom. I followed the figure with my eyes. From the way she walked and her silhouette, I knew without a doubt that it was my mom. She was walking next to a man. The two of them stopped by a cab, got in, and then drove off. After watching the whole scene, Vincent finally let go and apologized. "Sorry for grabbing you like that. But was that Alex?" "Yes, that was definitely her," I confirmed, my voice shaking. I hadn't gotten a good look at the man's face before they got into the cab, but his build seemed vaguely familiar. Where had I seen him before? It was clear that neither of them had noticed us. Vincent and I found a nearby cafe, trying to piece together what had just happened. As we sat there, everything started to feel more confusing. On one hand, the realization that Mom was alive filled me with joy, and I wanted to run to her immediately. But on the other hand, the questions started piling up. Why hasn't she contacted me? Why had she disappeared without a word? The more I thought about it, the angrier I became, feeling as though I'd been betrayed. My emotions were all over the place, and I was on the verge of panic. As my heart raced and my vision blurred, I heard a voice calling my name. "Megan, get a hold of yourself." I snapped back to reality, struggling to remember who was in front of me and where I was. "Take a deep breath and calm down," Vincent said firmly but gently, locking eyes with me. I nodded, focusing on my breathing. Inhale, exhale until I felt steady again. Once I had regained my composure, I turned to Vincent. "I'm sorry for losing control like that. It's understandable. I feel the same. I want to run after Alex right now, but that man with her bothers me. He must have his reasons," I thought, agreeing with Vincent's observation. "Who do you think that man was? Why was he with Mom?" "I'm not sure. He looked too young to be just a friend, though." Vincent was right, he didn't seem to be anywhere near Mom's age. "Maybe we should talk to Kevin about this and consider hiring a private investigator." A private investigator? I hadn't considered that option before. After a moment's hesitation, I nodded in agreement. Yes, that might be the best approach. Megan, I know this is shocking, but please hang in there. We have to handle this carefully. I could hear a slight tremor in Vincent's voice as well. We were both struggling to hide our emotions. That night, I told Kevin everything that had happened after he returned from his business trip. I explained how I had seen Mom walking down the street. Kevin, as usual, looked irritated, but I pressed on. So the police have closed their investigation, but I think we should hire a private investigator next. Kevin, who had been half listening and responding with indifferent grunts, suddenly snapped. A private investigator? That's a waste of time. You know, people say there are 3 people in the world who look just like you, right? It was probably just a look-alike. It wasn't a look-alike. Vincent saw her too. Then it was a doppelganger. Come on, Megan, the police couldn't find her. What makes you think a detective can? No matter what I said, Kevin only grew more hostile, completely dismissing the idea of hiring an investigator. Why was he so against this? I couldn't understand his refusal. Hiring a private investigator seemed like a reasonable step if we wanted to know the truth about Mom. And yet, he was vehemently opposed. While looking at Kevin's profile, I suddenly recall a scene from earlier today. A silhouette and outfit that seemed somehow familiar. The sense of unease I felt back then was vague, but then, in a flash, it clicked. That realization gradually turned into certainty. Later, I met Vincent at the usual cafe to discuss it. I ordered the same coffee from before and drank it all at once. I had made up my mind. When I said I wanted to hire a private investigator to look into Kevin, I was opposed. But I need to know the truth. I'm going to request the investigation without telling him. Huh, are you sure about that? I don't care. I'm past a point of worrying about methods. I was on the verge of grasping the truth behind the unease I had been feeling. Although I had turned my hunch into certainty, I couldn't be satisfied without solid evidence. All right, I'll take care of arranging the investigator. Once the results come in, I'll contact you. We hugged and left the cafe together. Dark clouds hovered in the distance, and a wind that seemed to warn of impending rain blew past us. The atmosphere was heavy. A few weeks later, we met again at the cafe. Sitting next to our coffee cups were the materials compiled by the investigator. This can't be. Even my small murmur seemed to dissolve into the cafe's air. Vincent and I were silent for a moment before he finally spoke. Megan, I have an idea. Vincent's face was more serious than I had ever seen it, his usual calm demeanor replaced by a harsh expression as he explained his plan. After hearing it all, I nodded and agreed. A few days later, I told Kevin, "Hey, I've got a school reunion this Saturday, so I'll be out all day." "Got it. Be careful." He responded in a surprisingly cheerful tone and headed into his room. He didn't seem to notice the cold stare I directed at his back. As planned, I left early Saturday morning. Meeting up with Vincent, we followed Kevin from the place we agreed on. Whistling absent-mindedly, he made his way to an apartment building. He walked right into one of the units. After Kevin disappeared inside, we noted the room number and approached the door ourselves. Dressed in hats and tracksuits to pose as delivery personnel, we rang the doorbell. We heard the lock click, and the door opened. Standing in front of us was a familiar woman. There was no doubt it was my mother, Alex. What, Megan and Vincent? It was painful to see my mom's distressed expression. But Vincent swiftly pushed the door open and entered the room. I followed him, and there, as expected, was Kevin. What? Why are you here? Megan, what happened to your reunion? That doesn't matter, not compared to this. As I said this, I slammed down the investigator's report. The scattered documents included pictures of the two walking together in town and leaving a hotel. Kevin's face turned pale, while my mom covered hers. Yes, the two were having an affair. Explain yourselves. When did you hire a private investigator? I told you not to. Kevin clicked his tongue, but when I glared at him sharply, they both resigned themselves and confessed everything. I'm sorry, it's all my fault. Kevin isn't to blame. As it turns out, Mom was the first to develop feelings for him. After Vincent and I got married, there were more opportunities to have meals together, and they began talking and touching more. At some point, Mom fell for Kevin. However, she couldn't openly see him, much less live together with him. Knowing that she couldn't break apart my family weighed heavily on her mind. But then Kevin suggested, if you disappear, we could meet whenever we wanted. So it was my idea to disappear, Kevin admitted. By faking her death, they believed they could meet freely without ruining our family. Of course, Mom had her own doubts. She knew it would hurt not just me, but also Vincent. She knew that. Even so, you chose to disappear. When Vincent asked, Mom nodded. Yes, I'm sorry. That letter you left behind, was that Kevin's idea too? Everything you wrote? Vincent's voice was calm but carried a weight of anger. His expression tense as he questioned her. Deep lines formed on his forehead. Mom began to answer, slowly. No, I wrote it. Kevin told me not to, but I just couldn't leave without saying anything. She must have had her reasons for doing so. But even after hearing her explanation, Vincent and I still had questions. Where had Mom been after she left the house she shared with Vincent? Overseas. I left the U.S. for several months. I arranged the plane tickets and the accommodation. It's all true. No wonder the police couldn't find her. The police had assumed there was no foul play and didn't conduct a full investigation. But with her being abroad, there was no way she could have been found. We had searched countless shops and places full of memories, asked people, all in vain. That's why you said, how long are we going to keep doing this? Back then, Kevin knew that Mom was alive and out of the country, and he had grown frustrated with being dragged into what he considered a pointless search. Perhaps because I hit the mark. Kevin fell silent, lowering his gaze. How could you? You're both so selfish. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. Please, forgive me. After explaining everything, Mom broke down in tears, repeatedly apologizing to me and Vincent, over and over again. Yet, despite all that, she still said she wanted to be with Kevin. That statement shocked me, but no one was more surprised than Vincent. Why? Was I not enough for you? He pressed, demanding an explanation for why she would choose Kevin over him. It was understandable. They had married later in life, had just begun living together. And now this. I'm sorry, I love him. He's kind, cheerful, and always so confident. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she spoke. But from my perspective, that's just a facade. How could a man who would have an affair with my mom be kind? At home, he always locked himself in his room, and I had never seen the cheerful, confident Kevin she was describing. And besides, I don't have much time left. What do you mean? I have cancer. They told me I don't have long to live. Mom explained that she had refused all treatment, planning to accept her fate when the time came. That was why the letter she left had read like a farewell note. My whole life, I lived for Megan. I never did anything truly feminine. I knew how much she had struggled throughout her life. Thinking of this, I urged her to continue. But at the very end, her voice cracked, unable to finish the sentence. At the very end, I wanted to live how I wanted to. As she said this, crying, Mom seemed so small. I understand how you feel, Mom. But I can't forgive you for choosing Kevin over me, over Vincent. You want to spend your last days with him. I made my stance clear. I knew from the investigator's report that her body had been ravaged by cancer. But so what? No matter the circumstances or how little time she had left, there are still lines you don't cross. What do you have to say for yourself, Mom? She struggled to find an answer as I pressed her. Then I turned to Kevin. Earlier, he had been pale, observing the situation, but now the color had returned to his face. Perhaps he felt relieved that no one had questioned him directly, but I wasn't going to let him get away with it. I have something to ask you as well. I picked up one of the scattered papers on the table, a photograph. It wasn't a picture of me or Mom, but of Kevin walking closely with an unfamiliar woman. The photo showed Kevin and a young woman walking arm in arm, smiling intimately. He had never shown me that kind of affection. Mom stared at the photo, shocked, clearly not recognizing the woman either. Kevin moved his lips as if he wanted to say something, but perhaps deciding it was useless. He cleared his throat and started speaking. Her name is Brock. She works at a nightclub I frequent. Yes, of course, we're dating. He said it proudly, leaving Mom speechless. As for me, I was beyond shocked, just completely fed up. When I first saw the investigator's report, I couldn't believe it, but now it all made sense. Kevin had been carrying on an affair with Mom while also frequenting nightclubs and seeing Brock, and the most absurd part was that he kept living with me all the while. I really wanted to ask how he managed his time for all that. How could you do this while being married? I glared at him, trying to hold back my rage. But Kevin, as if resigned to the situation, let out a mocking laugh. Married? Give me a break. What did you just say? I've had enough of living with you. You'd always come to wake me up in the morning, acting like the perfect wife. He glared back at me with disdain. I kept telling you that your little act made me feel like a fool, but you never noticed. Now that I thought about it, he had said something like that before, so that's what he meant back then. But if I didn't wake you up, you'd complain about that too, saying, "What's the point of living together, then?" Shut up, I never said that. And don't misunderstand, my relationship with Alex wasn't serious either. How could he say that after helping her fake her disappearance? It was about the inheritance. I figured if I stayed with her, I'd get a bigger cut once she passed. Inheritance. It was convenient. Once I got her inheritance, I'd have money to live with Brock. He kept talking as if it was no big deal, but I couldn't ignore what he just said. Live with Brock? Yeah. The only person I actually care about is Brock. I'm sure she feels the same. We're meant for each other, not you or Alex. This man, choosing some other woman over both his wife and his mistress, was truly despicable. As I stared at him coldly, I couldn't help but think how vile and rotten he was. Not only was he hurting me, but he was also hurting Mom without a second thought. Then go ahead and call Brooke, I said. Why? Come on, if she loves you as much as you say, she'll pick up, right? I pressed him, saying I had something to discuss with her directly. Sensing something, Kevin clicked his tongue in frustration and dialed Brooke's number. But no matter how long he waited, she didn't answer. What? Hold on. Why isn't she picking up? Growing more irritated with each failed attempt, Kevin became visibly agitated. What the hell? She's not answering. Did you do something? Maybe, I said, folding my arms and recalling what had happened a few days earlier. After learning about Brooke's workplace from the investigator's report, I had gone to see her. The look on her face when I showed up, her eyes practically popped out of her head. When I told her I was Kevin's wife, she simply said, "I can't believe it." Apparently, Kevin had lied to Brooke, telling her he was single. Not only that, but Brooke herself only saw Kevin as a regular customer and had no idea they were dating. She told me she didn't want to get involved in any trouble and, right in front of me, deleted Kevin's contact information. She apologized sincerely and promised never to have anything to do with him again. I had been worried about what might happen if she got confrontational, but in the end, I decided to forgive her. After I finished telling this story, Kevin collapsed onto his knees. Mutual love. Really? What part of that was mutual? But we went shopping together so many times, he muttered, his face growing pale once again. I never imagined I'd see Kevin look this pitiful. The confident attitude he'd shown just moments earlier had completely vanished, leaving him an empty shell after all his lies were exposed. Feeling utterly exasperated, I handed him a sheet of paper. It's over. Our relationship is finished. Let's get a divorce. I spoke firmly and sharply, though this was still being kind to him. Kevin, with a stunned expression, weakly took the paper from me. "Okay, sign it. Right now," I demanded. Then I turned to face Mom. She, too, was staring at Kevin with a pale face, trembling. She couldn't believe what she was seeing, nor could she believe what she had just heard. She had probably wanted to avoid breaking up her daughter's family, but now here she was, watching it fall apart in front of her eyes. Perhaps she regretted her actions, even just a little. Mom's large tears began to flow. Vincent, who should have been the one supporting her, stood by with a sorrowful expression, not moving to comfort her. He looked as though he was still wondering whether they could repair their relationship or if it was truly beyond saving. "Hey, Mom." I locked eyes with her tear-streaked, red face. "When you disappeared back then, it was really hard for me. I blamed myself, thinking I couldn't help you." I continued, recalling the events from 2 years ago. "And even when I found you later, I felt angry, wondering why you didn't reach out to me if you were okay. But the truth had been far worse than I could have imagined. Megan, I can't forgive you easily, Mom." Though I spoke with resolve, I couldn't stop the tears from falling. I wasn't sure if I was sad or angry, but the emotions were overwhelming. "But at the same time, I know that you gave up the best years of your life, as a woman, for my sake. That's also true. And I can't help but feel responsible for that, too." "That's not true. Mom, please don't choose a man like that. You might not have much time left, but I want to spend your final days together as a family. You might not have much time left, but I want to spend your final days together as a family." As I spoke my honest feelings, Mom nodded through her tears, and then she broke down crying. Vincent, determined to stay with her, gently held her shoulders, standing by her side. Supported by both me and Vincent, Mom was able to come home with us. For the next few months, I did everything I could to repay her. I took her on trips and treated her to her favorite meals. When her body started to give out, Vincent devoted himself to taking care of her, doing all the small things around her. "If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask." Mom seemed comforted by his kindness. She chose to spend her remaining days at home, in the house she shared with Vincent, and as the autumn drew to a close, Mom passed away quietly, with me and Vincent by her side. She was 65. Mom had finally finished her life's journey. Standing before her grave, I whispered, "Mom, you kept apologizing to us, right up until the end." Vincent, beside me, said nothing, only nodding silently. None of us could have predicted such a heartbreaking farewell. The wrinkles etched into his brow seemed to tell the story. By this time, my divorce from Kevin had been finalized. Naturally, I had filed for financial compensation in the divorce proceedings, and Kevin was required to pay me a monthly sum. It wasn't a lump sum, though, because Kevin didn't have any savings. He had spent so much money spoiling Brooke, and even went as far as secretly borrowing money behind my back. Luxury handbags, accessories, the list went on and on. Between repaying those debts and paying me alimony, I heard that his financial situation had become quite difficult. Still unsatisfied, I contacted Kevin's former coworkers and told them about his behavior. I told them how irresponsible he was with women, juggling 3 relationships at once, which ultimately led to our divorce. The coworkers were shocked and spread the news throughout the company, so Kevin's actions became common knowledge. No matter how much he tried to explain, everyone saw it as just excuses, and no one took him seriously. Eventually, he became isolated at work, and his boss pressured him to resign voluntarily. In the end, he even lost his job. As for me, I decided to start a new job. It had been decades since I had worked, so I felt nervous and unsure of myself. But Vincent introduced me to a job opportunity. A friend of mine started a store, and business is going well, so they're looking to hire more staff. It was a specialty leather goods shop, with most of its sales done online. There was a lot to learn, but starting something new was exciting, and each day felt fresh and stimulating. The staff there were a diverse group. Some were mothers whose children had grown, and others were simply passionate about leather goods, and others were simply passionate about leather goods. As I continued working, I started talking more often with a particular man. He had a hobby of collecting leather wallets and had become a fan of our store after discovering it. He was also a coffee enthusiast, and his favorite treat was the famed cookies, which were said to pair perfectly with coffee. At first, I would simply nod along, but once the conversation turned to coffee and cookies, I found myself joining in. That became the spark that brought us closer. We began meeting outside of work, and before long, we started dating. I was reminded of the coffee from that cafe I had visited before. Its rich aroma and slight acidity created a perfect balance. I know a great cafe. Would you like to check it out? When I asked him, he smiled and nodded. That smile made my heart flutter. A new chapter of my life was beginning, and with it, a new love.
My name is Emily. I'm a 32-year-old stay-at-home mom. My husband, Benjamin, is 34 and works a regular office job. We have a beautiful little girl, Mia, in our 8 years of marriage. Our 6-year-old daughter is so cute, she has both of us wrapped around her finger. I have an older sister, Lily, who is 3 years my senior. Recently turned 35, she got divorced due to personality clashes and is now a single mom. Her son, Logan, is just 4 years old, still so young. One day, we had planned a trip to the zoo, just the 4 of us. Unfortunately, I caught a cold and had to stay in bed. Benjamin decided to take the day off from work and go to the zoo anyway. He didn't want to disappoint the kids. Even though they were with the children, it was just my husband and sister alone. Even if they're in-laws, who could have imagined something would happen between a brother and sister? Fast forward to another day. I was walking down the shopping street on my way home from the grocery store when I saw Benjamin and Lily in a cafe by chance. I was puzzled as to why they were together. But I had to pick up Mia from after-school care soon, so I headed home without giving it much thought. When Benjamin got home that night, he told me nonchalantly. We ran into each other and then it started to rain. We just popped into the cafe to take shelter from the rain. So, I believed him. However, from that day forward, he started coming home late more often. He started asking for more pocket money because he said it wasn't enough. He also started going out more on his days off. When Lily came over, their relationship seemed more intimate than before. A string of suspicious events. I couldn't believe it. But I still trusted him. Benjamin still adored our daughter as much as ever and we still had a good relationship. However, it seems that I was the only one who thought everything was fine. Then, an incident happened that made me realize this. One day, as usual, Lily came over to our house. A friend invited me on a trip. Would you mind taking care of Logan for about a week? A whole week? It's the Bahamas, and it would be tough with Logan. But, please, I haven't been able to take a break recently. I'll bring back souvenirs, so please. She begged persistently. Indeed, I thought Lily had a tough time since her divorce. My parents and I had been helping her out, but raising a child alone is undoubtedly hard. So I reluctantly agreed. As the day of Lily's Bahamas trip approached, I'll be out of town for a few days on a business trip, said Benjamin. He said he would be traveling to several regions, so it would take a few days. I thought it would be tough, but when I heard the departure date, I was surprised. It was the same day as Lily's trip to the Bahamas. Was this just a coincidence? Was it just a coincidence that my sister's trip and my husband's business trip were on the same day? Was it a coincidence that Benjamin was spending more time looking at his smartphone? Was it just my imagination that he seemed to be acting sneakily and trying to hide his phone from me? Was it my imagination that when Lily came to the house, they casually touched hands and were standing closer together. Everything started to seem suspicious. Then came the day of Lily's trip. Early in the morning, Lily came over with Logan. The moment I took Logan's hand, I noticed something was off. His hand was abnormally hot. When I picked him up, his body was also hot. I didn't need a thermometer to know he had a high fever.
Lily, doesn't Logan have a fever?
Yeah, he's had a fever since yesterday. It hasn't gone down yet.
We can't delay. We have to get him to a hospital quickly.
Of course, my son Logan's health comes before a trip. But then, my sister said something outrageous.
Then, I'll leave it up to you. What?
That's what I'm saying.
I'm leaving Logan to you. You can't possibly be leaving behind a child with a fever, can you?
I have no choice. We've had this trip planned for a while. It's ridiculous to pay a cancellation fee.
It's not about the money, right? Isn't Logan's well-being important?
Of course, he's important. But since you're here, Emily, I'm not worried. Please take good care of him.
Wait, don't go, sis.
Despite my pleas, she left. I couldn't believe it. Logan was suffering with a high fever, and yet his condition worsened from the stress of moving around. So I quickly tucked him into bed and placed a cold, damp towel on his forehead. While preparing an ice pillow in the freezer, my husband woke up.
Honey, it seems like Logan has a fever.
Really?
My sister's awful. She left Logan like this to go on a trip.
It can't be helped. They've had this trip planned for a long time, and it's too late to cancel now.
You too, dear? Poor Logan.
If you're so concerned, then you should take care of him. Honey, can you do something about your business trip? If Logan has a contagious disease, he might pass it on to Mia. I'll take care of Logan, and I need you to take care of Mia. I thought my husband, who adores our daughter, would reluctantly agree. His job is important, but surely our daughter is even more so. But my hope was dashed.
What?
That's impossible. If you're worried, why not leave her with your parents?
That won't work. Our parents are busy with their jobs. And your parents live too far away to drop her off at this hour.
Then it can't be helped. Logan will be fine if we let him rest. Don't worry. Please don't be so casual about this. What do you want me to do? I can't change my plans. Oh, it's time. I have to go now. Bye. With that, he hurriedly left. Left alone, I immediately called my parents. They couldn't take time off from their sudden work commitments. But they agreed to leave work early and pick up Mia as soon as possible. I felt relieved when my mom said that. Until my mom arrives, I'll have to keep Mia locked in her room. I feel sorry for her, but it can't be helped. Meanwhile, Logan's condition seemed to be worsening. He started coughing in addition to the fever. In the afternoon, my mom, who left work early, arrived. I handed Mia over to her and headed straight to the pediatric clinic with Logan. In the car, the motion seemed to make Logan uncomfortable, which was hard to see. The doctor said it was just a common cold and prescribed a fever reducer. He asked us to observe Logan and call an ambulance if his fever went up or if he seemed delirious. I'm sorry, Mom, for suddenly leaving Mia with you. Don't worry about it. More importantly, I'm concerned about Logan. To my parents, Logan is as precious as Mia. On the other end of the line, I could hear my mother's worried voice. After hanging up with my mom, I decided to call my husband's office. I wanted to find out where he was staying on his business trip, just in case. The reply I received was, I should be on paid vacation. I sighed, lifting my voice towards the heavens as if making a plea. A dreaded suspicion was beginning to solidify. I opened my husband's laptop. I had never looked through it before, but a quick scan of his search history revealed his destination. The Bahamas. Both flight tickets and hotel bookings were arranged by him. I recognized the hotel's name. It was the same place my sister had mentioned. My sister and husband in the Bahamas at the same time, staying in the same hotel. Such a coincidence seemed next to impossible. The mere fact that my husband was in the Bahamas, taking paid leave while claiming to be on a business trip, was an alarming situation. Curious, I looked at my smartphone. I was checking my sister's social media posts. There were no new posts. But looking at her recent posts, although not clearly visible, I could tell she was frequently with someone. The glimpse of clothing I could catch were all too familiar. What changed my suspicion into certainty was a photo where the wristwatch of the man she was with was visible. It was the watch I had given my husband. Although not expensive, it was from a minor manufacturer, hence the unique design. The odds that another man, dressed like my husband, wearing the same watch would appear in my sister's photos seemed infinitesimally small. And then, I found the conclusive piece of evidence. A photo titled "Window Shopping" had my sister's reflection on the glass. On the edge of that photo, also reflected on the glass, was another person. Undeniably, it was my husband. My blissfully ignorant sister must have posted the picture without noticing her husband's reflection in the glass. My hands trembling, I saved all the pictures. There was no mistake about it. My sister and husband were having an affair. Right now, they were together. I felt everything I had built up with my husband crumbling down all at once. I tried calling them numerous times, but soon a voicemail message started playing. It seemed they had turned off their phones. Logan's fever still hadn't broken. Seeing his distressed face, anger started to rise within me. Despite our young child suffering. Despite me being in such a difficult situation. Right now, my sister and husband were probably laughing, enjoying their vacation in the Bahamas. Could there be a worse story? I was trembling with anger. I wondered what to do, but that could wait. First, I needed Logan to recover. But Logan's fever showed no signs of abating. In fact, it seemed to be increasing. I was shocked when I took his temperature.
107 degrees Fahrenheit.
Children tend to run high fevers. Mia had experienced a 104 degrees Fahrenheit fever before, but never this high. Why isn't the fever reducer working? Logan was completely drained. It looked painful for him to even move.
What should I do?
I fought hard to suppress the panic that was threatening to overtake me. I need to call an ambulance. It was at that moment, with my smartphone clutched in my hand. "Mom," Logan murmured in a small voice. His face contorted in pain, he called for his aunt. Unforgivable. I will never forgive them. As my vision seemed to turn red with anger. Logan's condition took a sudden turn for the worse. A week has passed since then. Contrary to my feelings of sorrow, today was a clear day. Staring blankly at the vast blue sky, tears began to spill over. I had lost count of how many times I had cried. Yet, the tears wouldn't stop. I could feel Mia's hand trembling in my own. The daughter was crying, too. As I lifted her up, I could see my parents weeping uncontrollably over her trembling, small shoulders. And the others in attendance. Everyone, absolutely everyone, was in tears. Suddenly, my smartphone vibrated. I put Mia down and saw my sister's name on the screen. "Hello?"
Emily? Long time no see. I just got back from the Bahamas. I've just landed at the airport.
I'm off to pick up Logan. Thanks for looking after him. It felt like a phone call from another world. I muttered to myself, he's gone to heaven. A tear that should have stopped fell.
What?
My sister on the other end of the phone didn't seem to understand what I had said. She responded with a clueless question. Heaven? What are you talking about? I don't understand. That's what I'm saying. He went to heaven while you were on your trip to the Bahamas.
I don't understand what you're saying.
You'll understand when you get here. The funeral is over, and we're at the crematorium.
Crematorium.
When I told my confused sister the location of the crematorium, she abruptly hung up the phone.
Logan! Logan!
My sister, just out of the taxi, dramatically changed her expression and started running. She called his name and looked around, but Logan was nowhere to be found.
Where is he?
He's not here. Of course he's not.
What do you mean?
I slowly pointed in one direction. Towards the crematorium. The crematorium doesn't emit smoke like it used to, but it's true that he is being cremated right now. Logan, that day, the day you dropped off Logan, his fever shot up to 107 degrees Fahrenheit all at once.
107 degrees Fahrenheit.
The antipyretic we got from the pediatrician had no effect, and his condition worsened rapidly. We had to call an ambulance in a panic.
So, that means Logan is...
I don't want to answer that. We're in the middle of a funeral. Saying that, I spread my arms wide, pointing at the crematorium.
Hey, what does this mean? What happened to Logan? Why are you here?
Someone shouted in place of my speechless sister. It was my husband. Unbelievable, my husband had come here with my sister.
What does that matter right now? What about Logan? Of course it matters.
Not losing to my husband's voice, I shouted back.
How can you two just abandon your family and go on a secret love trip? Moreover, Logan had a fever, and even when I said I needed help, you ignored me and went on your trip. Are you out of your mind? What are you talking about? I already know. When I asked your company, they said you had taken paid leave. I checked your computer and found a booking for a trip to the Bahamas. You were on the same flight and stayed at the same hotel as my sister. You think you can just claim it's a coincidence?
I must have had a terrifying look on my face. My husband lost his words under my intimidating stare. Tell me, Emily. Did Logan, did he die?
Do you have the luxury to ask such a question now? What do you think we're doing here? Why do you think I'm in a simple, modest dress standing at a crematorium? Don't you get it? No! No! No!
My sister's scream dominated the scene. As my sister broke down crying, I looked down at her with cold eyes.
You have no right to cry. You abandoned your son to go on a secret trip with my husband. You're the worst kind of person.
I was lonely. I was so lonely all by myself. So I just
what? Reached out to your sister's husband. What do you mean? I've done nothing wrong. It's not my fault. The real villain here is my ex-husband who refused to take our son, and it's not just him. It's also the fault of our parents who never helped me with the child, and Emily too.
My sister reacted angrily, not taking responsibility.
I didn't choose to have a child, and I didn't choose to be a single mother. I wanted him to take our son if we were going to get divorced, but he refused. I've been struggling alone because of that, but I didn't. I couldn't. Logan, oh Logan.
Lily. It was her lover, my husband, who comforted her as she collapsed into tears. It seemed they were no longer interested in hiding their affair.
Don't blame everyone else for your problems. Our parents and I have helped as much as we could. You can't justify leaving a sick child to go on a tryst. Not realizing how rotten you are, you're the worst. Hey, Emily, isn't that a bit harsh? Lily just lost Logan. She's in shock. Shut up, accomplice. I'm divorcing you, so be ready to pay what you owe. What? What does that have to do with anything? It has everything to do with it.
My husband and I argued, while my sister cried. It was a chaotic situation. Our parents approached. My tear-streaked sister started blaming them. Dad, Mom. Logan is. Why didn't you take care of Logan properly? Why did you let Logan? Suddenly, there was a loud slap.
Enough with your nonsense.
It was my father who slapped my sister's face.
Don't blame others when you were the one who abandoned your child.
But.
And having an affair with your sister's husband? You shameless woman. I'm ashamed to have raised you like this.
My sister cried even louder at our father's words. I wanted to punch my husband, too. I was glaring at him when... Mommy. I heard a little boy's voice. My sister quickly turned around. There. What? Logan? A man was holding Logan.
Logan? Logan!
My sister ran towards them, but the man quickly moved Logan out of her reach.
Hey! What are you doing, Andrew?
The man holding Logan was Andrew, my sister's ex-husband. He was the one who divorced my sister due to irreconcilable differences.
What are you doing, leaving Logan like that? He's my son, not yours. He's my son too. I complied with the public opinion that it's better for a mother to have custody, even though you insisted on not giving me parental rights. But you wouldn't let me see him no matter how many times I asked, and my worry proved justified. You're not fit to be Logan's mother. Just shut up. You should just pay the child support. I'd pay any amount for Logan. But you left him without care. You don't even know how critical his condition was, and you're out on your affair trip.
That day, when Logan's condition deteriorated, I panicked and called an ambulance. When we got to the hospital and while he was being treated, I called our parents and Andrew, Logan's father. He was surprised when I told him my sister was on a trip with my husband. After that, Logan, who was discharged from the hospital in good health, was resting at Andrew's and his parents' house.
Wait a minute, you're saying Logan's okay? Then whose?
My husband asked, puzzled, staring at the crematorium. I replied, it's our grandmother. Our grandmother, mother to me and my sister, and great-grandmother to Mia and Logan, was in her advanced years and bedridden, living in a nursing facility. She passed away from old age just recently. Despite being bedridden, our grandma was quite lucid and doted on her great-grandchildren Mia and Logan. Whenever we visited her at the nursing home, she would light up with joy. Her sudden departure left us, my parents, and Mia in deep sorrow, unable to do anything but grieve. Logan, who had been ill, couldn't attend the funeral. However, since he'd called my sister to the crematorium, Andrew was there. His fever had subsided, and he looked well.
You tricked us. No one said Logan had died.
My sister accused us with her eyes, but it was we who had the right to accuse.
I didn't hear about Grandma's death either.
She snapped back.
I tried calling both of you several times to tell you about Grandma's passing, but the line was always busy. Considering how kind she was to you, it's unfathomable that you're this late. Enough! You're all making fools of us. Logan, let's go home. You don't want to stay with such a man. You want to be with Mom, right? Andrew, give Logan back right now.
Will you ever stop? The one who scolded my sister, who was bearing down on Andrew, was our father.
Do you still think you can keep Logan with you after all of this? What you've done could have gotten you in legal trouble for child abandonment. You've proven to be an unfit mother. Never think you'll be allowed near Logan again. Logan will be raised by Andrew. Dad, how could you? We've decided to fully support Andrew and hire a lawyer. You are no longer our daughter. We're cutting ties with you. Mom!
My sister's face went pale at the harsh words of her own parents. I stood in front of her with a firm stance.
I'm divorcing my husband, so why don't the two of you stick together? You should be fine not seeing your children anymore. You were able to go on an overseas trip and leave them behind after all.
Upon hearing this, my husband burst out.
Emily, wait! It was just a lapse in judgment. Lily and I were just fooling around. The ones who matter to me are you and Mia.
Then my sister also started shouting.
What do you mean fooling around? You told me you no longer loved Emily and that I was the only one you loved. Stop! Stop the noise! I just love my daughter. Don't mess with me.
And so, the storm had reignited between my husband and my sister. Leaving the squabbling pair behind, we departed from the scene with my grandmother's ashes. After that, we had a lot of disagreements, but having appointed a lawyer, I managed to settle everything. Logan went to live with his dad. I thought he might feel sad being away from his mother, but he was rather pleased. Which meant my sister wasn't functioning at all as a mother. My husband and I had our disputes. Well, more accurately, my husband was obstinate, but after being scolded by both my parents and his, he was feeling down. Then our daughter landed the knockout punch. I don't need daddy. She might be only 6 years old, but girls mature quickly. She must have understood her father's despicable actions in her own way. When our daughter looked at my husband like he was a bug, I couldn't help but laugh. For my husband, who adored his daughter, no, my ex-husband, there could be no greater punishment. He was allowed to see his daughter, but whether she wanted to see him was up to her. And so, the storm came to an end. Mia and I returned to my parents' home and are living peacefully. My parents are thrilled to live with Mia. She's starting elementary school next year, so we're excited about the preparations. I plan to find a job when she starts school. Logan comes by every now and then with Andrew. He looks totally different, his face is brighter, and he's always smiling. Meanwhile, my sister and my ex-husband seem to have ended their relationship quite easily. I guess it was really just a fling for my ex-husband. Perhaps upset about being disliked by his daughter, he dumped my sister without hesitation. However, his despicable affair with his wife's sister became known at his company, which questioned his character, and he was relocated to a remote area. That will make it even more difficult for him to see his daughter. Serves him right. As for my sister, after being abandoned by everyone, she seemed to live like an empty shell for a while. Then she disappeared. We've filed a missing persons report, but I have a feeling we'll never find my sister. That's just the feeling I get.